Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the International Conference on Voting, Elections, Democracy, Public Policy, Programs, Reforms, Awareness, Education, Environment, Health, Well-being, and Sustainable Development 2024, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 76 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing. Commemorating Voters Awareness and Campaigns and Elections 2024 to create awareness and also to increase the voting percentage and motivate and encourage voters to actively participate in the coming elections. So we welcome you all once again to the 8th day of the conference. So before we start our proceedings today, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's proceedings. So first we will move on to the presentation. Actually, it was scheduled yesterday only, but we could, due to the paucity of time, we couldn't take it up. We have with us Sri Virendra Kumar Thakurji. So he would be presenting on election laws in India. He is an RTA resource person and also an advocate and also assistant professor in computer science department in Govind Ballabh Pant Institute of Engineering and Technology, Uttarakhand. And he is also an active participant and presenter in our platform who has created a lot of awareness and sessions on various legal topics on our platform. So we welcome you, sir, for your presentation. If you are ready, you have filled the registration form, then you can raise your hand so that we can make you co-host. Thank you. Yeah, now you can unmute yourself, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening to all. I'm connected from both the devices. I'll be sharing my presentation from the laptop and I'll be using my mobile phone for audio. I hope that combination works better. Yes. I have shared my screen. It will appear after network delay of few seconds. Is my audio clear, sir?
Yes, sir. We can see your PPT. Your voice is clear,
Okay.
but we can't see you. Now,
Yes, I am.
yeah, fine.
Video
Please
is on. Yes, okay.
take your
Okay,
own
sir.
time, sir.
Yes. So today we shall see very important topic, that is election laws in India. This is actually a very vast topic. In fact, there is full one semester subject in LLB on election laws. So obviously, we shall not be doing section by section reading because it is a very vast topic. We shall just have an overview of what types of laws are there and their relative importance, so that we can have an overview of the entire, say, election system in India and the role of Election Commission of India. All the data has been taken from authentically from Election Commission of India website as well as from India Code. So we shall see, first of all, the names of the different laws that are there in India. So we start, first of all, with the Constitution. Constitution of India is obviously the law of the land. It is one of the most basic documents. We shall see few articles that are related to elections. Then there are two major laws. One of them is the Representation of the People Act of 1951. It is bigger and gives in detail the procedure. Before that, there was another act which is still valid, Representation of the People Act 1950. We shall see what are the differences between these two acts, because these two laws prescribe in detail the entire election system in India. Then we have some criminal offences that are defined, that is 171A to 171I and some other sections in the Indian Penal Code, IPC, which is now will be substituted by Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, but there are not much changes as far as this chapter is concerned. Then there is Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989. So we have in elections the reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and therefore there are a lot of orders also, and this is a minor criminal law. So we shall see some sections related to that. Then there is Delimitation Act 2002. It is a very high powered commission, the Delimitation Act, which does the delimitation of constituencies, and the proceedings of it can't be challenged before any court. So it is a very high powered commission headed by, say, a Supreme Court judge retired. So we shall see how the provisions of Delimitation Act apply to elections and what are important provisions. Then we see some other laws, that is the Jammu and Kashmir Representation of the People Supplementary Act 1968, the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991, the Government of Union Territories Act 1963. Jammu and Kashmir at present is Union Territory in India. So these three acts prescribe the laws for the Union Territories, that is UTs. And some of them also have the assemblies. And now the Supreme Court has ordered even in Jammu and Kashmir to hold the elections by September 2023. The States Reorganization Act 1956, it also has some, say, there are two State Reorganization Acts, 1956 and 1966, by which most of the states were reorganized. And earlier we had in India category A, B, C, and D. Now there are only states as well as union territories after merger of many of the states in India from 1947 to 1951. Then there is the prohibition of simultaneous membership rules, 1950. These are rules, type of subordinate legislation. Then officers before whom candidates may make or subscribe oath or affirmation. So that is also prescribed. Then we have Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Orders Amendment Act 1976. In fact, there are a lot of SC/ST orders which are constitutional orders by the president. And since there is a reservation, so these are also, they also come under election laws, because we have a three-tier system in India, that is parliament, assemblies, as well as the local bodies. So for local bodies also some of these are relevant. So we shall see about these also. I am just giving the names. We can't go into details of this. So there is Constitution Scheduled Caste Order 1950, Constitution Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Tribes Order 1959, Constitution Sikkim Scheduled Tribes Order 1978. After merger of Sikkim into India, this was passed. Then the Constitution Nagaland Scheduled Tribes Order 1970, Constitution Scheduled Tribes Uttar Pradesh Order 1967, and the Constitution Dadra and Nagar Haveli Scheduled Tribes Order 1962. So these are some of the say constitution related SC/ST orders. Then we have the Constitution Andaman and Nicobar Islands Scheduled Tribes Order 1959, the Constitution Scheduled Tribes Union Territories Order 1951, the Constitution Scheduled Tribes Order 1950, the Constitution Sikkim Scheduled Castes Order 1978, the Constitution Pondicherry Scheduled Castes Order 1964, the Constitution Dadra and Nagar Haveli Scheduled Castes Order 1962, and the Constitution Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Castes Order 1956. For states, there is a single order, and for SC/ST, and as far as the say for Uttar Pradesh, there is separate order. For union territories, there are separate orders. Mainly, these contain the lists of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes that are recognized, say for the purpose of reservation in India, because there is reservation in their representation in parliament as well as in assemblies. Then there is Constitution Scheduled Caste Union Territories Order 1951, the Constitution Scheduled Caste Order 1950. This 1950 order contains most of the major part of the list that is applicable to most of the states. The Constitution Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Tribes Order 1989, the Constitution Sikkim Scheduled Tribes Order 1978, the Constitution Nagaland Scheduled Tribes Order 1970, the Constitution Scheduled Tribes Uttar Pradesh Order 1967, and the Constitution Dadra and Nagar Haveli Scheduled Tribes Order 1962. Then we have the Constitution Andaman and Nicobar Islands Scheduled Tribes Order 1959, the Constitution Scheduled Tribes Union Territories Order 1951, the Constitution Scheduled Tribes Order 1950, the Constitution Sikkim Scheduled Castes Order 1978, the Constitution Pondicherry Scheduled Castes Order 1964, the Constitution Dadra and Nagar Haveli Scheduled Castes Order 1962, the Constitution Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Caste Order 1956, and the Constitution Scheduled Caste Union Territories Order 1951. So this AC order for union territories applies to most of the union territories, and then there were some more changes as there was change in composition of states and union territories. Now we shall see 4 or 5 of these. Say this was a comprehensive list, but obviously, as I told earlier, this is a one semester subject in LLB, and we can't cover all. So we shall see briefly just the provisions. Again, we can't go into section by section reading of these provisions, but if we consider the Election Commission of India (ECI), then the role of it is mainly related to the election of the president, election of the vice president, election of the parliament, and election of the state assemblies. As far as the third tier, that is local government, is concerned, these are elected by the state election commissions. So we shall not enter into that in detail. So we shall see broadly what are the provisions of the Constitution. It is divided into several parts, and in part 5 there is the union. Chapter 1 is about the executive, and there is the president and the vice president. So 52 is about the president of India. Article 53 prescribes the election of president. There is an electoral college where MPs and MLAs of all the states have different say representation according to their population. Then 55 is the manner of election of president. 56 is the term of office of president. There is a very complicated formula for election of president, so we shall not go into detail of that, but details are available on Wikipedia article. Then manner of election of president, 55. 56 is term of office of president. It is 5 years. Eligibility for re-election, so they are eligible. 57. Then qualifications for re-election for election as president and conditions of president's office. These are 58 and 59. Then we have Article 62, that is time of holding election to fill vacancy in the office of president and the term of office of person elected to fill casual vacancy. So whenever president resigns, he resigns to the vice president, and vice president then automatically becomes the president. And in absence of them both, the Chief Justice of India presides as the president of India. So then there is provision for vice president of India. 64 is the vice president to be ex officio chairman of the Council of States. 66 is election of vice president. 67 is term of office of vice president. 68 is time of holding election to fill vacancy in the office of vice president and the term of office of person elected to fill casual vacancy. President is actually ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, and term of say all members is 6 years, and 1/3 of them retire by rotation every 6 years. But the term of vice president is 5 years. 71 is matters relating to or concerned with the election of a president or vice president, and 75 is other provisions as to ministers. So if there is any challenge to the say election of president or vice president, only the Supreme Court has the original jurisdiction, and the matters cannot go to any other court except the Supreme Court of India. Then there is chapter 2, that is Parliament. So 79, Article 79 is about Constitution of Parliament. There are 545 members. There is also Rajya Sabha, so composition of the Council of States in Article 80. 81 is composition of the House of the People. 82 is readjustment after each census. 83 is duration of houses of parliament, and 84 is qualification for membership of parliament, and 85 is sessions of parliament, prorogation and dissolution. Then we have conduct of business. So 99 is the oath or affirmation by members. Then there is also disqualifications of members. So 101 article is about vacation of seats. 102 is disqualifications for membership. 103 decision on questions as to disqualifications of members, and 104 is penalty for sitting or voting. Sitting and voting before making oath or affirmation under Article 99, or when not qualified or when disqualified. Then we have chapter part 6 about the states at assembly level in all states, and in some union territories we have the assemblies. So chapter 2 is about the executive. So there is the governor who is appointed by the president. 158 is about conditions of governor's office, and 164 is other provisions as to ministers. Ministers need not be house of any say member of any house at the time of their appointment, but within 6 months they have to get elected if they are not already members. Chapter 3 is the state legislature. So 168 is constitution of legislatures in states. 169 is abolition or creation of legislative council in states. We have bicameral, that is the say 2 houses in some states in India. There is besides legislative assembly, there are legislative councils also in some states. 170 is composition of the legislative assemblies. 171 is composition of the legislative councils. 172 is duration of state legislatures, and 173 is qualification for membership of the state legislature, and 174 is 7 sessions of the state legislature, prorogation and dissolution. There cannot be a gap more than 6 months between 2 consecutive sessions. That is, generally there are 3 sessions every year for the parliament as well as the state legislature. For conduct of business, 188 is oath or affirmation by members, disqualifications of members. So 190 is about vacation of seats. Whenever there is vacancy, there is a by-elections. 191 is disqualifications for membership. 192 is decision on questions as to disqualifications of members. And 193 is penalty for sitting and voting before making oath or affirmation under Article 188, or when not qualified or when disqualified. So this is about assemblies. Now comes the role of the Election Commission of India. It's a constitutional body. So part 15 prescribes about the elections in India. So 334 is about superintendent's direction and control of elections to be vested in an election commission. 325 is no person to be ineligible for inclusion in or to claim to be included in a special electoral roll on grounds of religion, race, caste or sex. These are constitutional provisions. 326 is elections to the House of the People and to the legislative assemblies of states to be on the basis of adult suffrage. So 18 is the qualifying age. So above 18, all people are qualified regardless of their gender. 327 is power of parliament to make provision with respect to elections to legislatures. 328 is power of legislature of a state to make provision with respect to elections to such legislature. And 339 is bar to interference by courts in electoral matters. So courts cannot order stay. There can be election petitions only after conduction of the election is complete. So the courts do not have any power to stay once the election have been announced by the ECI. Part 16 is special provisions relating to certain classes. So here we have provisions for reservations. So 330 is reservation of seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the House of the People. 331 is representation of the Anglo-Indian community in the House of the People. 332 is reservation of seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the legislative assemblies of the states. 333 is representation of the Anglo-Indian community in the legislative assemblies of the states. And 333 is representation of the Anglo-Indian community in the legislative assemblies of the states. 341 is about scheduled caste. 342 is about scheduled tribes. Besides this, we have in India 1/3 of the seats shall be reserved for women. For that, there is separate amendment that is brought in 2023. That is Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. I have already held a special session on that in this series of webinars. We shall not go into details of that, but it is yet to be implemented, and maybe they would be implemented after the new Lok Sabha is formed. So there will be again delimitation commission, and there will be these provisions shall come into effect for next 15 years, say that is after 2024 or say up to 2029, because delimitation commission will also take some time. Then there are emergency provisions, part 18. So there can be precedence rule, so provisions in case of failure of constitutional machinery in states. Then we have miscellaneous, part 19. So 361B is about disqualification for appointment on remunerative political post, that is office of profit, we call it. There are temporary, transitional and special provisions for some states. So 371F is about special provisions with respect to the state of Sikkim. 371G is for special provision with respect to the state of Mizoram. 371H is for special provision with respect to the state of Arunachal Pradesh. And 371I is special provision with respect to the state of Goa. So minimum number of MLAs, member of legislative assemblies, have been specified. Lastly, there are some schedules under the constitution. So those related to elections. So third schedule is related to Article 75, 4, 99, 124, 6, 148, 2, 164, 3, 188 and 219. How many allocation of seats are there in the say Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, that is prescribed. Forms of office or affirmations that are given in fourth schedule related to Articles 41 and 80 clause 2. There is allocation of seats in the Council of States. Then there is 10th schedule for defection. Anti-defection law is contained in 10th schedule of the Constitution. That is people who are changing the parties after their election. So Articles 102 and 2 and 191 2, this provides for disqualification from Parliament as well as from assemblies. So provisions as to disqualification on ground of defection. So these are the three schedules that are related to the elections. Coming to now the two major acts, that is RPA 1950 and RPA 1951. So these are the two acts, and we shall see broadly their features, because again it's not possible to see do the section by section reading of this. They are very long acts. So first we see the smaller act, that is the Representation of the People Act, RPA Act 1950, provides for the following. Firstly, the qualification of voters, preparation of electoral rolls, delimitation of constituencies, and allocation of seats in the parliament and state legislatures. Then we have some parts. So if you see the arrangement of this act, then part 1 is preliminary, part 2 is about allocation of seats and delimitation of constituencies, part 2A is about officers, part 2B, part 2 and 2B have been inserted through amendment to be prescribed for electoral rolls for parliamentary constituencies, part 3 is for electoral rolls for assembly constituencies, part 4 is electoral rolls for council constituencies, and part 5 is general. That is the arrangement of RPA Act. If we see the names of sections, then RPA 1950 has these sections. Part 1 preliminary has, 1 is short title, 2 is definition. Then we have part 2 is about the allocation of seats and delimitation of constituencies. So in the House of the People, that is the Lok Sabha, Article 3 is about allocation of seats in the House of the People, 4 is filling of seats in the House of the People and parliamentary constituencies, and 5 and 6 have been repealed. The state legislative assemblies. So 7 gives the total number of seats in legislative assemblies and assembly constituencies, and 7A is about total number of seats in the legislative assembly of Sikkim and assembly constituencies. That was added after merger of Sikkim into India in 1971. Then we have the delimitation of parliamentary and assembly constituencies order. So section 8 is consolidation of delimitation orders. 8A is delimitation of parliamentary and assembly constituencies in the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, or Nagaland. 9 is about power of election commission to maintain delimitation order up to date. Articles 9 and 9B were introduced, but they have been repealed. Then there are state legislative councils. So 10 is allocation of seats in the legislative councils, and section 11 is delimitation of council constituencies. Provisions as to orders delimiting constituencies. So 12 is the power to alter or amend orders, and 13 gives the procedures as to orders delimiting constituencies. Delimitation has to be done every 5 years, but it is not done every 5 years. But there have been delimitation commission. One was in 2002, and then it is freezed up to 2026. And now, after the coming into effect of the women's reservation, again there will be another delimitation commission in India that will be formed after 2024. Part 2A is about officers. So 13A prescribes about chief electoral officers. 13A is about district election officers. 13B is electoral registration officers. 13C is about assistant electoral registration officers. 13CC is about chief electoral officers, district election officers, etc., deemed to be on deputation to election commission. We do not have permanent staff. A very large machinery is not there in the Election Commission of India. So all the say government staff, that is staff of say central government, state government, public sector banks, they have to be treated as deputation, because elections are supposed to be only once in 5 years. So they are say considered to be on deputation to election commission, and they have very few permanent staff. We shall see about the advantages and disadvantages of this situation later. Then part 2B is electoral rolls for parliamentary constituencies. So 13D is electoral rolls for parliamentary constituencies. Part 3 is about electoral rolls for assembly constituencies. So 14 is about definitions. Section 15 is for electoral roll for every constituency. 16 is disqualifications for registration in an electoral roll. 17 is no person to be registered in more than one constituency. 18 is no person to be registered more than once in any constituency. 19 is conditions of registration. 20 is meaning of ordinarily resident. 20A is special provisions for citizens of India residing outside India. They also have voting right. 21 is preparation and revision of electoral rolls. 22 is correction of entries in electoral rolls. 23 is inclusion of names in electoral rolls. And 24 is appeals. 25 is fee for application and appeals. 25A is conditions of registration as electors in Sangha constituency in Sikkim. There are 3 forms that are prescribed by the ECI. So form 6 is for inclusion, 7 is for deletion, 8 is for alteration of names in constituency. Now these procedures have been made online. There is also electoral photo identity card, that is EPIC, that is given. So now there are photo identity cards to prevent the say unauthorized voting in elections. Part 4 is electoral rolls for council constituencies. Section 26 is repealed. 27 is preparation of electoral rolls for council constituencies. Then there is part 4A. This is about manner of filling seats in the Council of States to be filled by representatives of union territories. So 27A is constitution of electoral colleges for the filling of seats in the Council of States allotted to union territories. 27B to 27F have been repealed. 27C is termination of membership of electoral college for certain disqualifications. 27H, there is indirect election for Council of States and for this Council of States in UTs. 27H is manner of filling of seats in the Council of States allotted to union territories. 27I is repealed. 27J, power of electoral colleges to elect notwithstanding vacancies therein, and 27K is repealed. Then we have part 5, this is general. 28 gives the power to make rules. 29 is for staff of local authorities to be made available. So even all the staff of say Gram Panchayat, Jila Panchayat, Nagar Palika, Nagar Parishad, these can be made available. 30, jurisdiction of civil courts is completely barred because election petitions can be entertained, and once the election have been announced, there cannot be election petitions. They can be made only after the election is completed, so that there is no interference of courts in the electoral process. 31 is making false declarations. 32 is breach of official duty in connection with the preparation, etc. of electoral rolls. Then there are certain schedules. There are 4 schedules. Initially, there were 7 schedules, but the 3 schedules have been repealed. So first schedule is allocation of seats in the House of the People. Second schedule are the lists at the end of the act. They are called schedules. So second schedule gives the total number of seats in the legislative assemblies, and third schedule gives the allocation of seats in the legislative council state-wise. And then the fourth schedule is local authorities for purposes of elections to legislative councils. The fifth schedule has been repealed by the government of Union Territories at 1963. Sixth schedule has been repealed by the Representation of the People Amendment at 1956, and the seventh schedule has been repealed by the Representation of the People Amendment at 1956. Then there is another important legislation, that is the RPA Act 1951, and then we shall also make the comparison of this 1950 Act as well as the 1951 Act. This is more detailed Act, and it gives more detailed provisions related to the actual conduct of elections. So Act of 1950 gives a broad framework, and then it is made more detailed in 1951 Act. So Representation of the People Act 1951 is an act enacted by the Indian Provincial Parliament before first general elections. First general elections were held in 1952. The Representation of People Act 1951 provides for the annual actual conduct of elections in India. The Act also deals with details like qualification and disqualification of members of both houses of parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and the state legislatures, that is State Legislative Assembly and State Legislative Council. So rules for the mode of conduct of elections is highlighted in detail in this act. We shall see what are the broad provisions. Again, we can't go into details of this because, as I told you, it is very big act. Actual conduct of elections is prescribed in this. Administrative machinery for conducting elections, then poll, election offences, election disputes, by-elections, registration of political parties. Election offences are there in IPC as well as in RPA 1951. Then how to resolve election disputes? So some powers have been given to ECI. Then by-elections, whenever there is death or resignation of any member or disqualification of any member, and registration of political parties. So registration is different from recognition of political parties. So it is a multi-party system in India, and all the political parties are registered with the Election Commission of India. Now, the significance of RPA 1951 is that the act is of special significance to the smooth functioning of Indian democracy, as it checks the entry of persons with criminal background into the representative bodies. Many amendments have been made mainly in 2002 and 2003 to prevent the entry of criminals. Representation of the people at 1951 was amended many times, the major amendment being made in 1966. Now, the salient features of this act. So part 21 of the Indian Constitution drafted by the Constituent Assembly had mentioned for a provisional parliament. So initially there was provisional parliament that were from say 47 to 52, and then there were first elections that were held after 5 years, that is in 1952. So this provisional parliament enacted representation of the people at 1951 so that general elections could be conducted according to the rules mentioned. Citation is article number 43 of 1951, and RPA 1951 contains 15 parts, that is 2 parts added as amendments. Each part is divided into different sections, making it a total of 171 numbered sections, including those sections which were repealed later. So actual number of sections is different from 171. Now we see the structure of this RPA 1951. So details of parts in RPA 1951 are as below. Part 1 is preliminary. Part 2 is about qualifications and disqualifications. Part 3 is notification of general elections. Part 4 is administrative machinery for the conduct of elections. Part 4A is about registration of political parties, and Part 5 is about the conduct of elections. Part 5A is free supply of certain material to candidates of recognized political parties. Part 6 is dispute regarding elections. Part 7 is about corrupt practices and electoral offences. Part 8 is about disqualifications. Part 9 is about by-elections. Part 10 is miscellaneous, and Part 11 is general. Now we see the arrangement in detail. Again, it's not possible to go into section by section reading, but we shall just see the titles of these sections so that we know what are broadly the provisions. Part 1 is preliminary, 1 is short title, and 2 is interpretation. Chapter 1, part 2 is qualifications and disqualifications, in which chapter 1 is about qualifications for members of parliament, MPs, membership of parliament. There are 2 types of MPs, MP of Lok Sabha and MPs of Rajya Sabha. So 3 is qualification for membership of the Council of States, and 4 is qualifications for membership of the House of the People. We call them as upper house and lower house, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha respectively. Chapter 2 is qualifications for membership of state legislatures. We call them MLAs, members of legislative assemblies. And there are MLCs, that is members of legislative councils. So 5 is qualifications for membership of a legislative assembly. 5 is qualifications for membership of legislative assembly of Sikkim. Sikkim has 32 seats. Normally there cannot be less than 40 seats, but there are provisions in say constitution itself state-wise for some UTs. 6 is qualifications for membership of a legislative council. Chapter 3 is disqualifications for membership of parliament and state legislatures. So section 7 is of definitions. 8 is disqualification on conviction for certain offences. 8 is disqualification on ground of corrupt practices. 9 is disqualification for dismissal for corruption or disloyalty. 9A is disqualification for government contracts, etc. 10 is disqualification for office under government company. That is, say, working for office of profit is prohibited simultaneously. 10A is disqualification for failure to lodge account of election expenses. So the expense monitoring is also done by the ECI. 11 is removal or say reduction of period of disqualification. Chapter 4 is about disqualifications for voting. So 11A is disqualification arising out of conviction and corrupt practices, and 11B is about removal of disqualifications. Then there is part 3. Part 3 is notification of general elections. So 12 is notification for biennial election to the Council of States. 1/3 members retire every 2 years. It is a permanent house. 12A, notification for election to fill the seat allotted to the state of Sikkim in the Council of States. Section 13 is repealed. 14 is notification for general election to the House of the People. 14A is notification for electing the representative of the state of Sikkim to the existing House of the People. 15 is notification for general election to a state legislative assembly, and 15A is notification for certain elections to legislative councils. 16 is notification for biennial elections to a state legislative council. That is, MLCs also, again, they are permanent houses, and 1/3 members retire every 2 years. So total duration of every member is 6 years, as compared to MLAs who are elected for 5 years. Part 4 is administrative machinery for the conduct of elections. So section 19 gives definition. 19A is delegation of functions of election commission. 20 general duties of chief electoral officer. 28 is general duties of district election officer. So there are these electoral officers at state level as well as district level. Normally the district magistrates or collectors are nominated as district election officers. 20B is observers. 21 is returning officers. These are generally HDMs, Tahsildars. They are nominated as say returning officers. 22 is assistant returning officers. 23 is returning officer to include assistant returning officers performing the functions of the returning officers. 24 is general duty of the returning officer. There is returning officer for every constituency. 25 is provision of polling stations for constituencies. 26 is appointment of presiding officers for polling stations. 27 is general duty of the presiding officer. 28 is duties of a polling officer. 28A is returning officer, presiding officer, etc. deemed to be on deputation to election commission. Again, they are not permanent. Members of say election commission, but they are considered as deputation. They are generally central or state government officers. 29 is special provisions in the case of certain elections. There is part 4A, registration of political parties. So 29A is about registration with the Commission of Association and Bodies as political parties. 29B is political parties entitled to accept contribution. 29C is declaration of donation received by the political parties. So they have to submit returns to the Election Commission of India about their donations received, contributions received, foreign contributions, etc. Part 5 is about the conduct of elections. So in that we have several chapters. Chapter 1 is nomination of candidates. So 30 is appointment of dates for nominations, etc. 31 is public notice of election. 33 is nomination of candidates for election. 33 is presentation of nomination paper and requirement for a valid nomination. 33A is right to information. 33B is candidate to furnish information only under Act and the rules. Under RTI, this all the candidates have to declare about their educational qualifications, their property, about their criminal record, etc. to the Election Commission of India, and these records are made public on the ECI website. 33C is again right to information. 33D is candidate to furnish information only under Act and the rules. 34 is deposits. 35 is notice of nominations and the time and place for their scrutiny. 36 is scrutiny of nominations. 37 is withdrawal of candidature. And after withdrawal, if there is necessary, then the elections can be held. 38 is publication of list of contesting candidates. After that, they are entered into electronic voting machines. 39 is nomination of candidates at other elections, and 39 is allocation of equitable sharing of time. That is for their campaigning. Then chapter 2 is about candidates and their agents. So there are agents at all booth levels by all political parties. They can have their election agents. So section 40 is about election agents. 41 is disqualification for being an election agent. 42 is revocation of the appointment or death of an election agent. Section 43 and 44 have been repealed. 45 is functions of election agents, and 46 is appointment of polling agents. Then candidates and their agent. Since candidate himself cannot be present at all places, so they can nominate their agents. So 47 is about appointment of counting agents. 48 is revocation of the appointment or death of a polling agent or counting agent. 49 is functions of polling agents and counting agents. 50 is attendance of a contesting candidate or his election agent at polling stations and performance by him of the functions of a polling agent or counting agent. So at the time of polling, at the time of counting, they can visit, they have the powers to visit to see how the polling is going on, how the counting is going on, etc. 51 is non-attendance of polling or counting agents. So if they are not present, even then the elections can be conducted. So their attendance is not compulsory. It is the responsibility of the political parties to ensure their attendance. Part 5 is Then chapter 3 about general procedure at elections. So 52 is dates of candidate of recognized political party before poll. 53 is procedure in contested and uncontested elections. 54 is repealed. 55 is eligibility of members of scheduled castes or scheduled tribes in to hold seats not reserved for these those castes or tribes. Then 55A is repealed. Chapter 4 is about the poll. So 56 is fixed in time for poll. 57 is adjournment of poll in emergencies. 58 is fresh poll in the case of destruction, etc. of ballot boxes or say EVMs. 58A is adjournment of poll or countermanding of election on the ground of booth capturing. 59 is manner of voting at elections. 60 is special procedure for voting by certain classes of persons. 61 is special procedure for preventing personation of electors. In fact, to prevent this personation or impersonation, this epic electoral photo identity cards were prescribed. I have myself prepared for 4 assembly constituencies in 4 districts in India, more than 38.5 lakh voters in 96, 97, 95, 96 for the electors in Nagpur, Sivni, Balaghat and Morena districts in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. 61A is voting machines at elections. 62 is right to vote. 63 is repealed. Chapter 5 is about counting of votes. So 64 is counting of votes. 64A is destruction, loss, etc. of ballot papers at the time of counting. 65 is equality of votes. 66 is declaration of results. 67 is report of the result. And 67 is date of election of candidate. Chapter 6 is about multiple elections. So 68 is vacation of seats when elected to both houses of parliament. So candidates can contest for both houses as well as more than one seat. 69 is vacation of seats by persons already members of one house on election to other house of parliament. 70 is election to more than one seat in either house of parliament or in the house of, or either house of legislature of a state. Chapter 7 is about publication of election results and nominations. So crores of people are simultaneously accessing now. It is these elections are published on the website. So 71 is publication of results of elections in the council of to the council of states and of names of persons nominated by the president. 72 is repealed. 73 is publication of results of general elections to the House of the People and the state legislative assemblies. 73 is special provisions as to certain elections. 74 is publication of results of elections to the state legislative councils and of names of persons nominated to such councils. Chapter 7 is about declaration of assets and liabilities. So 75 is declaration of assets and liabilities, and all candidates have to report this to the ECI, and ECI publishes this on website for the say right of information of their right to information of their voters. Then chapter 8 is election expenses. So these are again monitored. There is upper limit for say different say candidates. 76 is application of chapter. 77 is account of election expenses and maximum thereof. 78 is lodging of account with the district election officer. So DM, the district election officer monitors these expenses and reports them to the commission. Part 5A. This is about the free supply of certain material to candidates of recognized political parties. So 78 is free supply of copies of electoral rolls, and 78B is supply of certain items to candidates, etc. Then part 6 is about disputes regarding elections. So chapter 1 is about the interpretation. 79 contains definitions. Chapter 2 contains presentation of election petitions to election commission. So section 80 prescribes about election petitions. Then 80A is High Court to try election petitions. 81 is presentation of petitions. 82 is parties to the petition. 83 is contents of petition. 84 is relief that may be claimed by the petitioner, and 85 is repealed. So these election petitions or the court cases are regulated by these sections 82, 84. Then chapter 3 is about trial of election petitions. So 86 is trial of election petitions. 87 is procedure before the High Court. 88 to 92 have been repealed. 93 is documentary evidence. 94 is secrecy of voting not to be infringed. 95 is answering of criminating questions and certificate of indemnity. 96 is expenses of witnesses, and 97 is recrimination when seat claimed. Then there is chapter 3 about trial of election petitions. 98 is decision of the High Court. 99 is other orders to be made by the High Court. 100 is grounds for declaring election to be void, and 101 is grounds for which a candidate other than the returned candidate may be declared to have been elected, that is without fresh election. 102 is procedure in case of an equality of votes, tie-breaking method. 103 is communication of orders of the High Court. 104 and 105 have been repealed. 106 is transmission of order to the appropriate authority, etc., and its publication. And 107 is effect of orders of the High Court. Then part 6 is about the disputes regarding elections. So chapter 4 is withdrawal and abatement of election petitions. So 108 has been repealed. Section 109 is about withdrawal of election petitions. 110 is procedure for withdrawal of election petitions. 111 is report of withdrawal by the High Court to the Election Commission. 112 is abatement of election petitions. And 116 is abatement of substitution on death of respondent. Then there are appeals. So 116A prescribes for appeals to Supreme Court on these election petitions. 116B is stay of operation of order of High Court. 116C is procedure in appeal. So Supreme Court has the appellate jurisdiction. Chapter 5 is about costs and security for costs. So 117 is security for costs. 118 is security for costs from the respondent. 119 is costs. And 121 is payment of costs out of security deposits and return of such deposits. And 122 is execution of orders as to costs for petitions. Then part 7 prescribes about corrupt practices and electoral offences. So chapter 1 is about corrupt practices. Section 123 is about corrupt practices. Chapter 2 is about chapter 3 is about electoral offences. So 125 gives promoting enmity between classes in connection with election. 125 is penalty for filing false affidavit, etc. 126 is prohibitions of public meetings during period of 48 hours ending with hour fixed for conclusion of poll. So campaigning ends before 48 hours of the actual poll. 126A is prohibition of public meetings during period of 48 hours ending with hour fixed for conclusion of poll. 126B is offences by companies. Then 127 is disturbances at election meetings. 127 is restrictions on the printing of pamphlets, posters, etc. 128 is maintenance of secrecy of voting. 129 is officers, etc. at elections not to act for candidates or to influence voting. And 130 is prohibition of canvassing in or near polling stations. Then 131 gives penalty for disorderly conduct in or near polling stations. 133 is penalty for misconduct at the police station. 132A, penalty for failure to observe procedure for voting. 133 is penalty for illegal hiring or procuring of conveyances at elections. So there are restrictions on public transport also. 134 is breaches of official duty in connection with elections. 134A is penalty for government servants for acting as election agent, polling agent, or counting agent. Sorry, I think it was muted by mistake. So 134B is prohibition of going armed to or near a polling station. 135 is removal of ballot papers from polling station to be an offence. 135A is offence of booth capturing. 135B is grant of paid holiday to employees on the day of poll. 135C is liquor not to be sold, given, or distributed on polling day. 136 is other offences and penalties therefore. And 137 and 138 have been repealed. Part 8 is about the disqualifications. So chapter 1 prescribes for disqualifications for membership. 139 to 140A have been repealed. Chapter 2, disqualifications for voting. So 141 to 144 have also been repealed. Chapter 3, other disqualifications. Section 145 has also been repealed. These have been included elsewhere. Chapter 4 is about powers of election commission in connection with inquiries as to disqualifications of members. So 146 is powers of election commission. 146A is statements made by persons to the election commission. 146B is procedure to be followed by the election commission. And 146C is protection of action taken in good faith. Then part 9 prescribes for by-elections. So whenever the vacancies arrive during the period of say 5 years or 6 years. So 147 prescribes for casual vacancies in the Council of States. 148 is repealed. 149 is about casual vacancies in the House of the People. 150 is casual vacancies in the state legislative assemblies. 151 is casual vacancies in the state legislative councils. And 151A is time limit for filling vacancies referred to in stations sections 147, 149, 150 and 151. So within 6 months, by-elections have to be held. Then part 10 is miscellaneous. So 152 is list of members of the state legislative assemblies and electoral colleges to be maintained by the returning officers concerned. 153 is extension of time for completion of election. 154 is term of office of members of the Council of States. 155 is commencement of the term of office of members of the Council of States, and 156 is term of office of members of state legislative councils. 157 is commencement of the term of office of members of the legislative councils. 158 is return of forfeiture of candidates' deposit. So they have to pay certain deposit at the time of contesting elections. Their deposit may be returned or forfeited depending on number of votes polled by them. 159 is staff of certain authorities to be made available for election work. Then 160 is requisitioning of premises, vehicles, etc. for election purposes. So they have given powers, and the say RTOs, road transport authorities, can requisition the vehicles for the purpose of conduct of elections. 161 is payment of compensation. 162 is power to obtain information. 163 is powers of entry into and inspection of premises, etc. 164 is eviction for requisition premises. 165 is release of premises from requisition. So they can hire the premises, that is schools, colleges, or the polling centers. 166 delegation of functions of the state government with regard to requisitioning. 167 is penalty for contravention of any order regarding requisitioning, and 168 is repealed. Part 11 is general. So 169 has power to make rules. 170 bars the jurisdiction of civil courts. 171 is repealed. So this is the construction of the general structure of the RPA 1951. Then there is some subordinate legislation. So there are rules and there is an order. So conduct of election rules 1961, then the conduct of parliamentary election Sikkim rules 1977, the conduct of assembly elections Sikkim rules 1979, the conduct of elections amendment rules 2019, the conduct of elections amendment rules 2020, the conduct of elections amendment rules 2022, the conduct of elections second amendment rules 2022, and the election symbols reservation and allotment order 1968. So the ECI allots the election symbols based on this reservation and allotment order. Now we see after seeing the broad structure of these two acts, we shall see the differences broadly. So expressions not used in 1951 Act but listed in Representation of the People Act 1950, 43 of 1950 shall have the same meaning. This is for the purpose of consistency in meaning. Chief Electoral Officer is mentioned in section 13A. Corrupt practices are mentioned in section 123. Election means an election to fill a seat or seats in either House of Parliament or in the either house of the legislature of a state other than the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Then AC judgments. Some say important judgments related to the elections. They have changed some provisions of this RPA 1950 and 1951. So we shall see 2-3 such judgments. The Act, since is pivotal in preventing criminals being elected as representatives, is always quoted by Supreme Court and High Court in various judgments. One important judgment is July 10, 2013. So Supreme Court struck down Section 8.4 of the RPA Act. So a 2-judge Supreme Court bench on July 10 struck down Section 8.4 of the Representation of People's RPA Act. Section 8.4 had provisions for convicted lawmakers to hold on to their seats provided they filed an appeal within 3 months of their conviction. So this was held as unconstitutional. Section 8 deals with disqualification of representatives on conviction for certain offences. This section states that a person convicted of an offence punishable under certain acts of Indian Penal Code, Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. That is now earlier it was Untouchability Act. Now it is renamed as Protection of Civil Rights Act. Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 UAPA. Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. Prevention of Terrorism Act 2002, etc. Now that is repealed, but some chapters have been under UAPA 1967. Shall be disqualified where the convicted person is sentenced to only fine for a period of 6 years from the date of such conviction, imprisonment from the date of such conviction, and shall continue to be disqualified for a further period of 6 years since his release. A person convicted for the contravention of any law providing for the prevention of hoarding or profiteering, or any law relating to the adulteration of food or drugs, or any provision of the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. Third is a person convicted of any offence and sentenced to imprisonment for not less than 2 years other than any offence referred to in subsection 1 or subsection 2 shall be disqualified from the date of such conviction and shall continue to be disqualified for a further period of 6 years since his release. This section 4 has been struck down by the Honorable Supreme Court. This section read that subsection 4 was, notwithstanding anything in subsection 1, subsection 2, or subsection 3, a disqualification under either subsection shall not, in the case of a person who, on the date of the conviction, is a member of parliament or the legislature of a state, take effect until 3 months have elapsed from that date, or if within that period, on appeal or application for revision is brought in respect of the conviction or the sentence, until that appeal or application is disposed of by the court. That is, during the appellate proceeding, this disqualification was stayed. Now this has been struck as unconstitutional, so that they don't take any advantage of the pendency of the case. So the stride through portion above was the controversial section 8(4) clause of the RPA Act, which was struck down by the Supreme Court, calling the Act ultra vires of the Constitution and providing for disqualification of MPs, MLAs on the day of their conviction. Now, another judgment is of July 2013. So, AC upholds Patna High Court judgment debarring persons in judicial and police custody from contesting elections, section 62(5) of the RPA 1951. So, convicted or not, rule applies for those in jail and police custody, not applicable to those out on bail. So, the bench said, we have heard counsel for the political parties and we do not find any infirmity in the findings of the High Court in the impugned common order that a person who has no right to vote by virtue of the provisions of section 62 subsection 5 of the RPA 1951 is not an elector and is therefore not qualified to contest the election. The question was, if they are not eligible to vote, how they can contest the elections to the House of the People or the Legislative Assembly of a state. So this judgment of Patna High Court was upheld by the Supreme Court. Now we see how our Election Commission of India conducts free and fair elections. So the holding of free and fair elections is the sine qua non of democracy. Since India is the largest parliamentary democracy in the world, it is of the people, by the people, for the people. So to ensure the conduct of elections in free, fair, and in an impartial manner, the constitution makers incorporated Part 15, that is Articles 324 to 339 in the Constitution, and empowered Parliament to make laws to regulate the electoral process. The Election Commission of India, ECI, is the watchdog of free and fair elections in the country, and Article 324 of the Constitution provides for its establishment. After that, 2 acts were enacted that we have seen in detail. So in this context, the Parliament has enacted the RPA, Representation of People Act 1950, and the Representation of the People Act 1951. These are implemented by the Election Commission of India. Now some unique features. So universal suffrage. After independence, there was a need to hold general elections to elect a truly representative government on the basis of universal adult suffrage. That is, all people above 18 are eligible to vote, regardless of their gender. Article 325 of the Constitution ensures universal suffrage and provides that no person be ineligible for inclusion in or to claim to be included in a special electoral roll on grounds of religion, race, caste, or sex. Universal adult suffrage is the right to vote of all adult citizens regardless of wealth, income, gender, social status, race, or ethnicity, subject only to minor exceptions. Election Commission of India. So the ECI is an independent constitutional authority, was therefore brought into force from November 26, 1949. That is the Constitution Day of India. The Constitution then came fully into effect on January 26, 1950. The acts. So there are 2 acts, and then there is the Delimitation Act. So to provide a legal framework for the conduct of elections, Parliament passed the Representation of the People Act 1950, Representation of the People Act 1951, and Delimitation Commission Act of 2002. So the Parliament provides the framework for the Delimitation Commission, that is its terms of reference, and within those terms of reference, the Delimitation Commission does the delimitation of constituencies which cannot be challenged before any court. Delimitation is for the purpose of first general elections to the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabhas. The first delimitation order was issued by the President in consultation with ECI and with the approval of Parliament in August 1951. Now we see the difference between this RPA 1950 and 1951. We have seen that there are these 2 major acts. So the key provisions of 1950 Act, it lays down the procedures for delimitation of constituencies, provides for the allocation of seats in the House of the People and in the Legislative Assemblies and Legislative Council of States. We have seen that they are prescribed in the schedules to these acts. It lays procedure for the preparation of electoral rolls and the manner of filling seats, and lays down the qualification of voters. The as far as this matter of delimiting constituencies is done, so there is a procedure that is prescribed, and the Constitution of Delimitation Commission is also prescribed by the Parliament. So the President of India has been conferred the power to amend orders delimiting constituencies only after consulting the ECI. In Lok Sabha, there is a reservation of seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. The ECI has the power to determine the constituencies to be reserved for scheduled tribes in the states of Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura, for which we have seen that there are special orders that have been promulgated by the President. Under Article 82 of the Constitution, the Parliament may by law enacts a delimitation act after every census, that is after every 10 years it should be done. After coming into force the commencement of the act, the central government constitutes a delimitation commission. The delimitation commission demarcates the boundaries of the parliamentary constituencies as per provisions of the Delimitation Act. Since they may or may not be suitable for particular political parties, that's why these orders have been made unchallengeable. That is, the political parties cannot go to court challenging this delimitation exercise. The present delimitation of constituencies has been done on the basis of the 2001 census figures under the provisions of Delimitation Act 2002, and then it was freezed. So notwithstanding the above, the Constitution of India was specifically amended in 2002 not to have delimitation of constituencies till the first census after 2026. But now, since women reservation will come into effect, so maybe after 2026, another delimitation commission is likely to be constituted in India, and that will done the this demarcation of constituencies for women reservation. Thus, the present constituencies carved out on the basis of the 2001 census shall continue to be in operation till the first census after 2026. Now, the allocation of seats. So, as far as possible, every state gets representation in the Lok Sabha in proportion to its population as per census figures. Electoral rolls. So, the 1950 Act permits the registration of persons in electoral rolls who are ordinarily resident in a constituency and persons holding service qualifications such as member of armed forces, member of the armed forces of a armed police force of a state, serving outside the state, or central government employees posted outside India. Certain offices in India declared by the President in consultation with ECI. The wives of such persons are also deemed to be ordinarily residing in India, and there is a proposal for making some provisions gender neutral by replacing the term wife with spouse. That is, instead of wife, the husband may be eligible in some cases. So the term is made gender neutral now. Now there are certain officers. So Chief Electoral Officer, CEO. So each state to have a CEO nominated or designated by the ECI in consultation with the state government to supervise the election work in the state duties. They are also responsible for conduct of third tier, that is panchayat elections. The ECI also nominates or designates an officer of the state as the district election officer, DEO, in consultation with the state government. Normally these are district collectors or DMs, district magistrates. The DEO works under the overall superintendence and control of the CEO, because they are also concerned, say, IS officers, they are considered as on deputation as far as during the election. The ERO, Electoral Registration Officer. So ERO is responsible for the preparation of the electoral roll for each constituency, that is parliamentary or assembly. An appeal against the order of the ERO during the update of the electoral rolls now lies with the district magistrate. So orders of ERO can be challenged with the before the DM. Then there are returning officers. These are normally subdivisional magistrates or tahsildars. RO is responsible for the conduct of the election in the constituency and returns an elected candidate. The ECI nominates or designates an officer of the government or local authority as the RO in consultation with the state government. So there could be for assembly constituency as well as for parliamentary constituencies. Then power to make rules. So power to make rules under the Act is conferred to the central government, which can exercise the power in consultation with the ECI. That is the rule-making power. Civil courts have no jurisdiction. So civil courts have also been barred to question the legality or any action of the ERO regarding revision of electoral rolls. So only authority is ECI and the High Court and Supreme Court for election petitions. Then voting rights. So in 2010, voting rights were extended to citizens of India living abroad. So after 2010, these citizens living abroad can also vote. Then there are schedules. We have seen that there were 7 schedules earlier, and 5th, 6th, and 7th have been repealed. So now there are only 4 schedules. So first schedule deals with allocation of seats in the House of the People. Second schedule is total number of seats in the legislative assemblies. Third schedule is regarding allocation of seats in the legislative councils. And the fourth schedule is local authorities for purposes of elections to legislative councils. Next we see the RPA provisions 1951. So what are the key features which distinguish it from the 1950 Act? So it regulates the actual conduct of elections and by-elections. It provides administrative machinery for conducting elections. So we have seen that there is very less staff with the election commission, and all the staff of government is considered to be on deputation. And further, there is model code of conduct also, about which we shall see briefly. It deals with the registration of political parties. It specifies the qualifications and disqualifications for membership of the houses. It provides provisions to curb corrupt practices and other offences, and it lays down the procedure for settling doubts and disputes arising out of elections, that is, provides for election petitions. The Parliament has laid down the following qualifications for contesting elections in the RPA 1951. So a person must be an elector in the constituency, that is a voter. The person must be a member of a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe in any state or UTs if he or she wants to contest a seat reserved for them. So for reserved seats, they must belong to SC/ST. The minimum age for becoming an MLA or MP in Lok Sabha is 25 years. And at the Panchayat and municipality levels, the minimum age for contesting elections is 21 years. Then right to vote. So apart from Article 326 of the Constitution that guarantees the right to vote to every citizen above the age of 18 years, unless disqualified by any law, Section 62 of the RPA 1951 also ensures that every person who is in the electoral roll of that constituency is entitled to vote. One person can vote at one constituency only and only for one time in a particular election. So that is the restriction. One person per one vote per person. If a person is confined in a prison, whether under a sentence of imprisonment or transportation, then his now punishment for transportation has been repealed in India. That was only during the British Raj. Then he is not eligible for voting. However, in the case of preventive custody, he can vote. So people who are provisionally detained have the right to vote. In 2014, the ECI had said that the person under preventive custody had the right to vote, but not under trials and convicts. However, the Act allows those serving sentences less than 2 years to contest elections from prison. So even those who are in prison, but they are serving sentences less than 2 years, they can contest elections. There is also nota option. So none of the above. Nota was introduced in the ballot papers or electronic voting machines in general election to the state assemblies for the first time in 2013. There are also VVPATs. So voter verifiable paper audit trail is an independent system attached with the EVMs that allows voters to verify that their votes are cast as intended. It was introduced in 2013 after the SC allowed the ECI for the requirement of free and fair elections in its verdict in the People's Union for Civil Liberties, that is PUCL versus Union of India case of 2013. So VVPATs are now there. Then provisions related to political parties. So there is provision for registration as well as, say, recognition. These are different. Every association or body, in order to become a political party, must be registered with the ECI, which decision regarding registration will be final. Now, when they are allotted symbols, so that is based on the recognition. They can have common symbols. Registered political parties in course of time can get recognition as state party or national party. For that, there are certain criteria. So change in name and address of a registered political party must be communicated to the ECI, and the ECI cannot de-recognize a party. That is the present legal situation. Then there are voluntary contributions. So voluntary contributions by any person or company within India other than a government company can be accepted by the registered political party. A company can donate any amount of money to any political party. There is no obligation to the company to report such donations in its profit and loss account. Recently, there was this electoral bonds case. So some changes have been made as per the judgment of Supreme Court of India. It is mandatory for the political parties to submit to the ECI list of donations they received above rupees 2,000. Political parties cannot receive more than rupees 2,000 as cash donations. And now political parties are eligible to accept contributions from foreign companies defined under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010, that is FCRA, which is regulated by the ED, Enforcement Directorate. There are declaration of assets and liabilities, and these are made public. So individuals contesting elections have to file an affidavit declaring their criminal records, assets and liabilities, and educational qualification. After getting elected, MPs are required to file a declaration of assets and liabilities with the Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha. And these declarations have to be made by MPs within 90 days of taking their seats in Parliament. There is also right to information. So candidates need to furnish information about their criminal antecedents. That is, whether he or she is accused of any offense punishable with imprisonment of 2 years or more in a pending case, or has been convicted of an offense. Now there are also special courts for trying cases against MPs, MLAs. Voting through postal ballot. So any class of person can be notified by the ECI in consultation with the concerned government, which can give their votes by postal ballot. Then section 126 of the RPA 1951, that is 48 hours before the polling ends or concludes, displaying of any election matter by television or similar apparatus in a constituency is prohibited. And section 126 is not applicable to the print media, news portals, and social media. So section 126A prohibits the conduct of exit poll and dissemination of its results during the period mentioned. So the results of these polls or opinion polls, exit polls can be say declared only after the this election exercise has ended, but before it's a declaration of actual counting results. There is ceiling on expenditure. So a candidate contesting polls in large states can spend up to rupees 70 lakhs in the Lok Sabha election and rupees 28 lakhs in an assembly election. Counting of votes. So at every election where a poll is taken, votes are counted by or under the supervision of the returning officer RO and contesting candidate, his election agent and his counting agents. And destruction, loss, damage, or tempering of ballot papers at the time of counting must be reported by the RO to the ECI. Corrupt practices are defined under RPA 1951. So all government or non-government officials are included within the scope of corrupt practices. Bribery is any gift or offer or promise or gratification to any person as a motive or reward. Undue influence, defined as any direct or indirect interference or attempt to interfere on the part of the candidate with the free exercise of any electoral right. The publication by candidate any statement of fact which is false in relation to the personal character or conduct of any candidate. The hiring or procuring of any vehicle by candidate of or any elector to or from any polling station. There is promoting enmity, that is considered an offense. So any person who prompts or attempts to promote on grounds of religion, race, caste, community, or language, feelings of enmity or hatred between different classes of citizens of India can be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years. Then there is also prohibition of public meetings during a period of 48 hours, ending with the hour fixed for the conclusion of the poll. So these are the provisions. Then disqualification of MPs and MLAs. So RPA 1951 lays down certain rules for disqualification of MPs and MLAs. Section 83 of the Act states that if an MP or MLA is convicted for any other crime and is sent to jail for 2 years or more, he or she will be disqualified for 6 years from the time of release. And even if a person is on bail after the conviction and his appeal is pending for disposal, he is disqualified from contesting an election. Section 84 allowed convicted MPs, MLAs and MLCs to continue in their posts provided they appealed against their conviction sentence in higher courts within 3 months of the date of judgment by the trial court. We have already seen that this has been declared as unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court in July 2013 struck down Section 84 of the RPA 1951 and declared it ultra vires of the Constitution and held that the disqualification takes place from the date of conviction, regardless of the pending appeal. The significance of the acts. So direct democracy is there. The provision of direct election for every constituency makes the process of election more democratic and participatory for encouraging and empowering people to play an active role in choosing appropriate candidates. There is equal representation. So the RPA 1950 provides for delimitation, which brings equality in the process of election by ensuring roughly an equal number of electors in each constituency. So this delimitation exercise is taken by the Delimitation Commission, which is a very high-powered commission. Federalism. So the acts strengthen the federal polity of the country by giving due representation to each state in the parliament, because we have Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Decriminalizing Indian politics. So RPA 1951 plays a significant role in breaking the politicians, police and criminal nexus, which is one of the greatest threats to the rule of law in India, by prohibiting the entry of persons with a criminal background from the electoral process, the decriminalizing Indian politics. Many amendments were done in 2002 and 2003. Accountability and transparency. So the RPA 1951 provides for the expenditure monitoring mechanism, which ensures the accountability and transparency of the candidate in the use of public funds or misuse of power for personal benefits. For clean election, the RPA 1951 prohibits corrupt practices like booth capturing, bribery, or promoting enmity, etc., and ensures the conduct of free and fair elections, which in turn encourage political liberalization and democratization. There is legitimate political funding. So the RPA 1951 provides that only those political parties which are registered under Section 29A of the RPA 1951 are eligible to receive electoral bonds, thus providing a mechanism to track the source of political funding and ensuring transparency in electoral funding. Now the challenges. It is not completely foolproof system. Still there some challenges exist. So we shall see what are the problems at present. false disclosures. So that is even after the provision of the declaration of assets and liabilities in the RPA Act, candidates do not disclose all the assets and provide wrong and incomplete information regarding their assets, liabilities, and income and educational qualifications. This is a problem. Second is the bureaucratization of politics. So we have permanent as well as temporary executive. Permanent executive are government servants who are serve till their date of retirement, and temporary executive are those who have to contest elections every 5 or 6 years. So in spite of the inclusion of several provisions aimed at making the ECI as an independent body, it is still dependent on the union for financial matters. That paves the way for political parties to manage to get the officers in their favor through money and muscle power. So this is another drawback. Now, the dual responsibility of the ECI. So the ECI does not have independent staff. We have seen that these are taken from central and state government and public sector banks or other bodies. So ECI does not have independent staff of its own. So whenever elections take place, it has to depend upon staff of central and state governments. Hence, the dual responsibility of the administrative staff to the government for ordinary administration and to the ECI for electoral administration is not conducive to the impartial and efficient functioning of the commission. That is, they have to do their routine duties as well as they have to do the duties of the election also. So that's why there is Model Code of Conduct or MCC that has been enacted in India. We shall see in just 2 slides about MCC 2013. There is misuse of government machinery. So the RPS lack clear provisions and guidelines on the matters related to the misuse of official machinery that gives an unfair advantage to the ruling party at the time of elections and leads to the misuse of public funds for furthering the prospects of candidates of a particular party. Therefore, ECI has to act as a watchdog to monitor electoral expenses and prevent misuse of electoral machinery as per the MCC. The misuse of official machinery takes different forms, such as the issue of advertisements at the cost of government and public exchequer, highlighting their achievements, disbursements out of the discretionary funds at the disposal of the ministers, use of government vehicles for canvassing, etc. So there are strict rules in MCC for this. So there is restriction on opinion polls. By an amendment made to the RPA 1951, conducting and publishing results of exit polls have been prohibited so that they do not adversely influence the elections. There should be a similar prohibition on restriction on opinion polls also, as several manipulated opinion polls could impact the voting pattern. So the research methodology has to be seen in such opinion polls. False declaration as offense. So the RPA 1951 should be amended to include all the items related to the election disclosure in the affidavit, and making false declarations in connection with the election to be an offense. Then independent ECI. So in order to curb the practice of bureaucratization of politics and to secure complete independence of the election commission, its expenditure should be charged on the consolidated fund of India, and delisting of valid electorates. This is a frequent problem in India, that is, names appear from the electoral lists. So Parliament must pass a law dealing with the serious problem of delisting of valid electors. That is, even when people are alive, their names disappear. So from electoral rolls, because illiterate electorate residing in far villages cannot watch over the publication of electorate lists. So there has to be strict law for this. Now the state funding of elections. So to minimize the role of money in elections, provision should be made for state funding of elections. There is no law at present because the 2018 law relating this electoral bonds has been struck down by Supreme Court as unconstitutional recently. A few government reports have highlighted the prospects of state funding of elections, like Indrajit Gupta Committee on State Funding of Elections 1998, Law Commission Report on Reform of the Electoral Laws 1999, National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution 2001, that was enacted after 50 years of the enactment of Constitution. Then Second Administrative Reforms Commission 2008. Now the powers of the ECI. The powers of the ECI are enormous and all-encompassing, which even exceed the powers of the executive in all election-related issues during the course of the election period, thereby giving it effective tools in dispensing free and fair elections. The only thing that lacks is will and integrity on the part of responsible officials. The elections is considered to be a transition period, that is a bloodless revolution period, and therefore the role of ECI becomes very important. The ECI should become more prudent and proactive to ensure the fairness and transparency of the general election and wipe away any doubt regarding its integrity as an esteemed institution. As far as this RPA 1951 is concerned, So this RPA Act was passed by the Parliament in accordance with Article 327 of the Constitution of India. So it derives its power from the Constitution. This legislation deals with the conduct of elections in the country and is hence a very important one. RPA background was that Articles 324 to 329 of Part 15 of the Indian Constitution provides for the country's electoral system. The Constitution confers upon the Parliament the power to enact laws for all matters connected with elections to the Parliament and the state legislature, and the government introduced the first RPA in 1950 in order to regulate elections in the country. This Act makes provisions for seat allocation in the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies through direct elections, the voters' qualifications for the elections, the delimitation of constituencies for both Lok Sabha and assembly elections. The extent of the constituencies would be determined by the delimitation commission, and the Indian president can alter the constituencies after due consultation with the election commission. Preparation of electoral roll. So a person cannot be enrolled for over one constituency. He or she can be disqualified and barred from voting if found to be of unsound mind or is not an Indian citizen. RPA 1951 makes provisions for the conduct of elections in India. So it also talks about corruption and other illegal activities related to election, and the Act makes provisions for dispute redressal in matters connected to elections, and it also talks about qualification as well as grounds for the disqualification of MPs and MLAs. This amendment, there was several amendments to RPA. So we shall see the highlights of these amendments. RPA Amendment Act 1966. This amendment abolished election tribunals. Election petitions were now transferred to high courts. So now there are no election tribunals in India. But disputes in connection with the presidential and vice presidential elections are heard directly by the Supreme Court of India. That is, Supreme Court has the original jurisdiction. Matters can't go to High Court regarding president and vice president. Then there was RPA Amendment Act 1988. So this amendment made provisions for the adjournment of or countermanding of polling because of booth capturing and electronic voting machines, that is EVMs. Then there was 2002 amendment. It inserted section 33A into the Act, which provides for the right to information for people. After this, voters have the right to know the antecedents of the candidates. Contesting candidates are required to furnish information about the prior conviction of offences or whether they are accused of any offence while filling their nominations. The amendment also included provisions for the declaration of assets and liabilities by the candidates. Then there was 2010 amendment. So RPA Amendment Bill 2010, this amendment act confers voting rights to Indians who are NRIs. The amendment, however, does not give NRIs the right to contest elections, and it also does not give NRIs the right to vote in absentia. They have to be present in their constituencies during polling. This was just a bill. Then there was Bill 2013. So it was passed by both houses of parliament. Key changes: a person in police custody or in jail can file a nomination for an election as long as his name is entered on the electoral roll, even if a person is prohibited from voting. This amendment bill seeks to address the situation where the Supreme Court concluded that a person in jail or police custody is not entitled to vote and therefore is not an elector and thus cannot contest elections. So to circumvent that judgment of 2013, this bill was brought. Then another bill, 2017, this bill which was passed by the Lok Sabha seeks to allow for proxy voting of NRIs and to make certain provisions of the acts gender neutral. So the salient features of this, to summarize, are the salient features of the RPA are described in this section. Only a qualified voter is eligible to contest for elections to the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That is, it is a preliminary requirement that first of all he or she must be a voter. For seats that are reserved for the scheduled caste and tribes communities, only candidates belonging to those categories can contest the elections. There is a reservation for them in India. These are the disqualifications. So a person found guilty of any of the following shall be disqualified for a period of 6 years to contest elections after release from jail. That is, promoting hatred and enmity between classes, influencing elections, bribery, rape of or other grave crimes against women, spreading religious disharmony, practicing untouchability, that is under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, importing or exporting prohibited goods, selling or consuming illegal drugs as well as other chemicals, engaging in terrorism in any form, and have been imprisoned for at least 2 years. Then the candidate can also be disqualified if he or she has engaged in any corrupt practice or excluded for related government contracts. Disqualification can also result if the candidate fails to declare his or her assets. The candidate must declare his or her assets and liabilities within 90 days from his or her vote-taking day. That requires for political parties to be registered with the Election Commission, and any change in the name and or address of the party should be intimated to the Commission. A party can take donations from any individual or company within India, but not government-owned ones. And foreign entities are not allowed. Every political party must report a donation over rupees 20,000 received from any person or company. A party that gets a minimum of 6%. See, these are the criteria for being called a national party. So a party that gets a minimum of 6% of the valid votes for assembly elections in more than 4 states or wins at least 2% of seats in Lok Sabha from at least 3 states is recognized as a national party. At present, India has 6 national parties. A party that gets minimum 6% vote. Now, this is criteria for state political party. So a party that gets a minimum 6% of the votes in the state assembly elections or wins at least 3% of total seats in the state assembly will be a state political party. Candidates should deposit rupees 25,000 as security for the Lok Sabha elections and rupees 12,500 for all other elections. And candidates belonging to the SC/ST communities get a 50% reduction in the security deposit. These are forfeited if they get minimum than the prescribed number of votes. Then offenses pertaining to elections defined in the RPA 1951. These are promoting hatred and enmity, breach of official duty and providing support to any candidate, booth capturing and removing ballot papers, engaging in the sale of liquor within 2 days before the conclusion of polling, and announcing public meetings within 48 hours before voting and also causing disturbances. Now, there are some FAQs related to elections in India. So the first RPA was passed in 1950, second RPA was passed in 1951. Amendment. So the RPA was amended many times. In 1966, the amendment to the 1951 Act abolished election tribunals. Many other amendments are passed, the details of which are mentioned in the article. So we have seen some of these. Then can a convicted person contest election in India? So a person convicted of any offence and imprisoned for more than 2 years shall be disqualified from contesting for a period of 6 years after he or she is released from jail. After the 6-year period, he or she can contest elections. That is, there is bar for 6 years. The RPA Act 1951 is an act of Parliament of India to provide for the conduct or election of the Houses of Parliament and to the House or Houses of the Legislature of each state, the qualifications and disqualifications for membership of these houses, the corrupt practices and other offences at or in connection with such elections, and the decision of doubts and disputes arising out of or in connection with such elections. And it was introduced in Parliament by Law Minister Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The act was enacted by the Provisional Parliament under Article 327 of Indian Constitution before the first general election. That is its legal sanctity. Now the background of this, if we see before independence, so an elected Constituent Assembly was set up on 9 December 1946 to frame the Constitution. That was Constituent Assembly. Most of the articles of the Constitution came into force on 26 January 1950, commonly known in India as the Republic Day. The basic qualification to represent the people is Indian citizenship and not disqualified to vote under Section 16 of the RPA 1950, read with Part 2 and 7 of this Act. There was a provisional parliament that functioned for about 5 years, that is from 1947 to 1952 in India. So Part 21 of the Constitution contained the transitional provisions. Articles 379 and 394 of Part 21, which contained provisions for provisional parliament, and other articles which contained provisions like citizenship, came into force on 26 November 1949, the date on which the Constitution was adopted. Main parts of it. The Provisional Parliament enacted the Act number 43 of 1951 for the first general election conducted on, say, 25th October 1951. So this Act came into force. Now the amendments. So the Act has been amended several times, but some of the notable amendments include the RPA Amendment Act 1966, which abolished the election tribunals and transferred the election petitions to the High Court, whose orders can be appealed to Supreme Court. However, election disputes regarding the election of President and Vice President are directly heard by the Supreme Court. RPA Amendment and Validation Act 2013 and Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2016. This was introduced by Varun Gandhi in Lok Sabha, a private member bill. Now the application to constitutional offices. So registration of political parties is governed by the provisions of Section 29A of this Act. As far as the President is concerned, so Supreme Court shall inquire and decide and regarding doubts and disputes arising out of or in connection with the election of a President per Article 71(1) of the Constitution. Subject to Article 71(3), Parliament made applicable rules or procedure to petition the Supreme Court for resolving the disputes only that arise during the election process of the President, but not the doubts that arise from his unconstitutional actions or deeds, or changing Indian citizenship during the tenure of President, which may violate the requisite election qualifications. Subject to the provisions of Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971, Supreme Court can remove the President for ceasing to possess the eligible qualifications to be Lok Sabha member under Section 7 and 8Q of this Act. This is as far as the impeachment is concerned. When the acts or deeds, that is for giving assent to unconstitutional bills passed by the Parliament or state legislatives, permitting the Gazette notification of the unconstitutional advices, including promulgation of ordinances under Article 123 or imposing president rules in a state under Article 356, rendered by the Union Cabinet or Prime Minister, etc., of the President are proclaimed by the courts as unconstitutional, malified, ultra-vires, void, etc. So this is, we can say, division or separation of powers between President and the Supreme Court. Also, it is the duty of the Supreme Court to clarify any doubt in connection with the election of President, such as speedy trial of the pending cases against an elected President before the elevation to President. The scope of the trial would be limited only to decide whether the incumbent President is eligible to continue in his post, but not to prosecute the President under criminal charges with arrest and imprisonment, or to claim relief in a civil case to comply with the provisions per Article 361 of the Constitution. Then Vice President. So similar to the President per Article 71, upon ceasing to possess the requisite qualifications to be a member of the Rajya Sabha subject to this Act, all pending criminal or corruption cases are to be disposed on priority by the Supreme Court to decide whether he is qualified to continue as Vice President. Then Prime Minister. So upon ceasing to possess the requisite qualifications to be a member of Parliament subject to this Act. The Speaker. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha is also removed on getting disqualified for being Lok Sabha member under Section 7 and 8 of this Act. This would arise out of Speaker's wrong certification of a bill as money bill, inconsistent with the definition given in Article 110 of the Constitution. When courts upheld the unconstitutional act of the Speaker for wrong certification of a bill as money bill, it amounts to disrespecting the Constitution, deserving conviction under Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971, which is applicable for disqualification of Speaker's Lok Sabha membership under Sections 7 and 81K of this Act. Then we see Supreme Court rulings regarding RPA. So the Constitution of India, which empowers the Parliament of India to make laws regarding disqualification of MP and MLA, also mentions that in disqualification of an MP or MLA, the seat becomes vacant immediately. Interpreting the words of Constitution, the bench found the clause 8.4 of the RPA Act. This was declared unconstitutional, which gives a time period of 3 months to file an appeal and allows continuation in office till its disposal as unconstitutional. The Cabinet of Ministers, in order to nullify the judgment, passed an ordinance for the amendment of the Act. However, the said ordinance wasn't signed by the President and it was taken back. The recent verdict on 19 November 2013 ensured the stay on the election campaigning of the convicted legislatures for the current session. Now the Office of Profit. Again, as far as disqualification is concerned, so these Office of Profit have been defined. So being public servants, elected representatives, MLAs and MPs, cannot hold an office of profit under Section 9A of the RPA and Articles 102 and 191E of the Constitution. In the year 2006, Sonia Gandhi resigned her membership of Lok Sabha for enjoying office of profit while being an MP. In 2006, Sonia Gandhi's ruling party in Parliament also amended the RPA, the Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959 with retrospective effect from 4th April 1959 to prevent her punishable under the Representation of People Act 1951 and Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971. So these are some disputes or controversies related to Office of Profit in India. Then the cases, notable cases and instances. Former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had announced that the government had issued notifications for registration of overseas Indian electors under the Representation of People Act 1950 to enable Indians resident abroad to participate in elections. Then former State Cabinet Minister Jagir Kaur was booked under Section 123 of the Act for bribing voters after the police seized 183 cases of liquor from the vehicles. These are some notable cases. Allahabad High Court invalidated, found Indira Gandhi, who was the then Prime Minister, guilty on the charge of misuse of government machinery for her election campaign. The court declared her election null and void and unseated her from her seat in the Lok Sabha representing Rai Bareli constituency. This was a landmark case after which this emergency was proclaimed. The court also banned her from contesting any election for an additional 6 years. This resulted in declaration of emergency and amendments were made in the Constitution. That was 42nd Amendment called Mini Constitution of India, which was then almost nullified by the 44th Amendment during Morarji Desai government in 1978 as 44th Amendment to the Constitution to validate the election. Umlesh Yadav is the first politician to be disqualified by the Election Commission of India for a period of 3 years for suppression of her election expenses incurred when she was elected as an MLA to the Bisauli constituency in the 2007 Uttar Pradesh State Assembly elections. Two Uttar Pradesh Legislative Assembly members, Bajrang Bahadur Singh and Uma Shankar Singh, were disqualified in January 2015 due to holding government contracts. As part of the disproportionate assets case against Jayalalitha, she became in 2014 the first chief minister to be disqualified from office. Madhya Pradesh cabinet ministers Narottam Mishra disqualified for 3 years by Election Commission of India for providing wrong information to EC on expenses incurred during the polls under Section 10A of the RPA at 1951 to be read with Sections 77 and 78 of the Act. On 19 December 2023, Madras High Court convicted K. Ponmudi in disproportionate assets case for amassing assets during his tenure as Minister for Mines and Minerals in 2006-2011 DMK government in Tamil Nadu. That is under Prevention of Corruption at 1988, Section 13. On 21 December 2023, he and his wife were sentenced to 3 years imprisonment as well as to a fine of rupees 50 lakhs each by the Madras High Court. As a result, Ponmudi was disqualified as an MLA and minister. The Act allows cash donations of any amount that it states in Section 29C that any contributions above rupees 20,000, that is $250 to political parties, are to be reported. Now we come to IPC. IPC has certain sections that are related to electoral offences. There is an entire chapter. 153A is promoting enmity between different groups on grounds of religion, race, place of birth, residence, language, etc. and doing acts prejudicial to maintenance of harmony. 153AA is punishment for knowingly carrying arms in any procession or organizing or holding or taking part in any mass drill or mass training with arms. This was never notified, and therefore now it is repealed. It will be repealed on say 1st July 2024 when Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 comes into effect in India. 153B is imputations, assertions prejudicial to national integration. Chapter 9A is about of offences relating to elections. 171 defines candidate electoral right defined. 171B bribery. 171C undue influence at elections. 171D is personation at elections. 171E is punishment for bribery. 171F is punishment for undue influence. 171G is false statement in connection with an election. 171H illegal payment in connection with an election. 171I failure to keep election accounts. Then 505 is statements conducing to public mischief. So these are the provisions of IPC. Then there is delimitation Act 2002. So the preamble to the Act says an act to provide for the readjustment of the allocation of seats in the House of the People to the states, the total number of seats in the Legislative Assembly of each state, the division of each state and each union territory having a Legislative Assembly into territorial constituencies for elections to the House of the People and Legislative Assemblies of the states and union territories and for matters connected therewith. So this is a short act of just 12 sections. It provided for short title, definitions, constitution of delimitation commission, duties of the commission, associate members, casual vacancies, procedure and powers of the commission, readjustment of the number of seats, delimitation of constituencies, publication of orders and their date of operation, power to maintain delimitation orders up to date, and repeal. Another delimitation commission is likely to be constituted in India around 2026 when women reservation comes into force. So that will be constituted by the parliament as per the say provisions of Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, that is a Constitution Amendment Act. There are two sections in SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act 1999. So Section 2 contains definitions and Chapter 2 offences of atrocities. Section 3 contains punishment for offences of atrocities against members of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. There is States Reorganization Act 1956. So provisions for the Legislative Council. So Madhya Pradesh Legislative Council is provided in Section 33. There are Government of Union Territories Act 1963. So Part 1 is preliminary. Section 2 contains definitions and interpretation. Part 2 contains legislative assemblies. So there are legislative assemblies for union territories and their composition. So Delhi and Pondicherry have legislative assemblies. Qualifications for membership of legislative assembly, duration of legislative assemblies, vacation of seats, disqualifications for membership. 14 is disqualification on ground of defection for being a member. 39 is assembly constituencies. 40 is representation of Puducherry in the House of the People. 51 is provision in case of failure of constitutional machinery. 52 is authorization of expenditure by President. This is related to Puducherry. For NCT of Delhi, there is separate act that is called Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991. So Part 2 provides for Legislative Assembly. Section 3 is about Legislative Assembly and its composition. 4 is qualifications for membership of Legislative Assembly. 5th is duration of Legislative Assembly. 14 is vacation of seats. 15 is disqualifications for membership. And 16 is disqualification on ground of defection. So these are the relevant sections as far as elections are concerned. Part 3 is delimitation of constituencies. So Section 38 is Election Commission to delimit constituencies. 39 is power of Election Commission to maintain delimitation orders up to date. 40 is elections to the Legislative Assembly. 53 is power of President to remove difficulties. Then there is Model Code of Conduct MCC 2013. Again, it's a very long code. We shall just briefly see the structure. Model Code of Conduct for the guidance of political parties and candidates. Part 1 is general conduct, 2 is meetings, 3rd is procession, 4th is polling day, 5th is polling booth, 6th is observer, and 7th is relating party in power. There are some appendices. So A1 is Model Code of Conduct on various government schemes, etc. A2 is payment out of discretionary funds and MP MLA local area development office scheme. A3 is tour of ministers. A4 is use of aircraft or official vehicle. A5 is posting of officers and ban on transfer. So this is MCC 2013 that is say in force at present. So that is a comprehensive review of the say entire election laws in India. We have not covered in this the EVMs, that is election, this electronic voting machines. That would be, I think, deserve a separate presentation by itself. But this is a comprehensive review of the election laws in India. It's a full, again, I would say it is a full subject in LLB courses. So it's not possible to cover all the laws in India, but this presentation attempted to give comprehensive review of the different laws related to elections in India. So I would see the chat box if there are any questions.
It was very insightful and detailed presentation. Of course, the subject like law cannot be dealt in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. We do understand, but it was very precise and to the point. The gist of entire election laws has been very well presented. Hope all the participants have enjoyed this deliberation. And there is one query. If
Yes.
I would like to contest in elections. So what is the procedure and what is the eligibility? Can you by
Okay.
one of the participants? So I think that is not covered
Elections are there at 3 levels. Yes. So there are elections to the parliament. There are elections to the for MLC. There are elections for assemblies, MLAs and MLCs, and there are even third tier of elections, that is for panchayat. So for that there are different criteria that are prescribed. So generally these criteria include some certain age limit. Age limits are different. Then there are some limits on the election expenses. Anybody can contest the elections. The person should not be bankrupt or convicted criminal. So there are certain constitutional provisions also. So these are certain broad provisions, and the person must be a voter, that is an elector in a particular constituency. So these are generally the requirements. So subject to these requirements and provisions for disqualifications, anybody can contest the elections. And in fact, in India, many people have risen from grassroots, and they have even rose to the offices. That is the highest offices in the country. So it's a free and fair democracy, and anybody who wants to contest the elections can file the nomination paper subject to certain procedures. There have been many people or even ordinary citizens, regardless of their sponsorship by the political parties, they have even contested elections as independent. And normally there are 2 to 4% candidates who even win elections as independents. So there is no need to be a political party. And registration with ECI is also very simple as far as the registration process is concerned. For recognition, there is a complicated procedure, but anybody can even form a say political party, and there are thousands of political parties as such, but there are very few recognized parties at national and state levels.
Hope this is answered. Otherwise, we can take it up tomorrow. If
Yes.
but this is also a very important topic because we have created so much
I think
awareness.
tomorrow we can tomorrow, sir, I think we can see briefly about the EVMs and the doubts regarding EVMs. So, electronic voting machines is a very hot topic, and there have been several court cases also. So maybe we can see some technicalities, because I am a computer engineer also, and maybe I can tell you more about the because we have one of the best systems of electronic voting machines, and we are also exporting this to many countries. So we can have a brief presentation on EVMs if I can get some time, and if you can give some time tomorrow, because tomorrow I think is the last day related to this series of webinars on elections.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
you can go ahead, sir. You are welcome. What you can do
Yes, sir.
is, if you have time, you can also present on this eligibility criteria, if it is possible. Otherwise,
yes, yeah.
Eligibility criteria, that how to apply if any candidates want to contest
Yes,
in
we can go into more
elections.
details. Yes.
Yeah, eligibility
Yes, sir.
criteria, and I think a minimum support is required. So all these
Yes.
procedures and all those things, that is also a very good topic. In fact, we missed out. So we can extend 1 or 2 days if required, because there is no such constraint as such. So tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll dedicate entire session to you for 2 topics. One will be on the eligibility criteria for candidates, especially, and those who want to apply
Yes.
at different levels.
Yes.
And detailed eligibility criteria and all. And the next part, next presentation would be on EVMs and various concerns regarding the EVM. So 2 topics. Tomorrow, entire 3 hours, you can take it and make as detailed as possible, so that everyone is aware.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we are trying to create awareness on voting, and we should also create, when they want to contest also, because that is also very important. People are not coming forward to contest in the elections, so we need people also.
Yes, sir.
So that is also very important aspect. So tomorrow we will take up both these aspects. And today, any further queries by participants, feel free to ask. This is very important topic, not only just for the sake of awareness, but for your competitive studies also. For public service exams and all, these are so we generally asked questions in various topics. So it's a very good opportunity for you all to learn. If you have any doubt, you can ask. You can raise your hand or use chat box. Or if you want any other topics also to be covered, kindly let us know. So we will try to cover them as well. If required, we will extend 1 or 2 days, or we can have that in a different form also. No problem. Anyway, every day is a different, day for certificate. So that's not a problem. As long as you are attending, you will be getting an additional day certificate as well. I don't see any queries. There are few appreciation messages. I think.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm thankful to Dr. Ravindra for giving me this opportunity. I'm also thankful to Shri Holistic Health Foundation of India, and she's a research institute and center for arts, science, and well-being for giving me this opportunity to make this long presentation. It took around 1.5 hours, but it was a comprehensive review of all the election laws in India. Actually, this was not my subject of specialization during my LLB, but it is a compulsory subject in 3-year as well as 5-year LLB courses in India. So law students generally study it for one full semester in their LLB courses, this subject. Thank you, sir. Thanks to all the participants also.
Yeah, and there was also one request from, as there are, law set exams, law entrance exams happening and scheduled. So people were also asking for some guidance classes on research methodology and UGC net
Yes, sir.
also. And
That's my favorite subject. We can have some sessions on research methodology also. I have taught also that subject, even at PhD level and master's level. And I have passed it thrice. That is at MA, this criminology and criminal justice administration, in MBA, as well as in MTech. So I have passed it from Amravati University, from Lucknow University, as well as Punjab University, Chandigarh. So from three, I have passed that subject thrice. It is one of my favorite subjects, and I have scored very high marks in that. It is even about 90%. So I have taught it also. So any say topic related to research methodology, I would be glad to organize a session on that.
okay, then we can do one thing.
Definitely,
We'll
sir.
plan it. Maybe as per the convenience of sir, we can plan few sessions, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks
Yes, sir.
daily, which will focus
Yes, sir.
on
Sure.
cracking the law set, whichever state. We'll try to take the national syllabus so that, and we will inform
Yes,
and
sir.
we will discuss it, and we'll prepare a flyer and circulate, and whoever wants they can join
Yes, because
through
nowadays
this way also we can contribute.
this now compulsory subject in all master's level and doctoral level courses throughout India. So it is
Yeah.
very important subject, research methodology.
So we'll see. So anyone else have any queries, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we'll move on to today's commemorations. Then we can take up any other presentations. So thank you, Virendra Maji, for the wonderful presentation. And thanks to the
Thank you, sir.
participants, you have also, remembered as the another important aspect of awareness that has to be covered. For contestants, definitely tomorrow we will cover. Virendra Kumarji will take up in detail about both AVMs as well as the contesting part in the elections.
Yes,
So thank you, sir,
yes,
once
sure.
again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
We wish
Good
you
night to
all
all.
the success and look forward for more sessions in the future.
Thank you. Obviously, sir. It is my pleasure. Thank you.
So with this, we shall move on to our daily commemorations quickly. So today we are commemorating a very important day, which is World Migratory Bird Day. Almost every year we have a special event, special webinar dedicated to this day, as we are coinciding with the existing program. So we thought it would be part of the commemorations. This is a very important aspect now because of this climate change and various impacts that is creating, and lot of migratory routes are being affected, and birds are facing a lot of challenges, and that impacts the bird population and also the ecosystems, habitats related to birds, not only birds, but those who are interdependent on the coexistence of these species. So this World Migratory Bird Day, which is commemorated 2 days in a year, in the first half of the year in May 11th and October 12th, in the second half of the year. So there is a specific reason why the specific dates are chosen. So these are two migratory seasons where birds move in large numbers from one place to other. There is summer to winter, winter to summer. They travel because, there is a difference because of availability of food and various other aspects and climatic reasons. So this year, the theme for the World Migratory Bird Day is Protect Insects, Protect Birds. So there are 3 access flyways, which are also the routes of these migratory birds, which is American flyway, African and Eurasian flyway, and East Asian, Australasian flyway. So these we'll also look into in detail about these flyways in brief. So through the activities being undertaken on these 3 flyways and resulting exchange of information, this World Migratory Bird Day wishes to increase the level of awareness about the threats, both general as well as the specific, that birds are facing. So by comparing their experiences and concerns and sharing their stories and activities, these bird activities, activists, environmental activists, and so on, people around the world are making their voices and actions reach out even further throughout the flyways, and underlying the fact that bird conservation is indeed a global issue. Now, so this, as the theme suggests, World Migratory Bird 2024 is focusing on insects. So the first time ever, the campaign, will focus the importance of insects for migratory birds, which is the food for the migratory birds, and highlights concerns related to decreasing population of insects. So as the insects population is decreasing, the availability of food for these migratory birds are at constantly threat. So insects are essential sources of energy for many migratory bird species, not only during the breeding seasons, but also during their extensive journeys, and greatly affect the timing, duration, and overall success of bird migrations. Along their migration routes, birds actively seek out insects in fields, forests, wetlands, and various habitats during stopovers. The timing of bird migration often coincides with peak insect abundance at stopover locations. So, supplying nourishment for birds to replenish their energy resources and reserves before continuing their journeys. So, for a bird to successfully complete the journey, these insects play a major role because it is through these insects they get the required energy to travel long distances. You'll be astonished the kind of distances these birds travel. The loss and disturbance of insect populations at breeding sites and along avian migration routes threaten bird survival and well-being. Natural spaces like forests and grasslands that have been transformed or endangered by intensive agriculture and urban development, and its effects, such as light pollution, can result in a decline in insect populations. Pesticides and other herbicides designed to protect crops harm insects that birds rely on for food, a scarcity of energy, and the protein rich insects can hinder bird migration and breeding, leading to weakened immune system, reduced reproductive success, and increased mortality rates for both adult birds and their offspring. So, birds play a crucial role in pollination and pest control, and lack of insects disrupts these ecosystem functions. Overpopulation of certain insects without natural predators, which are birds, can also cause outbreaks that damage plant health and agriculture, and also can cause harm to the humans. The World Migratory Day campaign in 2024 will stress the need for proactive conservation measures. This includes reducing the use of pesticides and fertilizers where possible, switching to organic farming. Other measures include maintaining and connecting areas of natural vegetation, which provides food and shelter for birds and other species. In agricultural landscapes. In 2024, World Migratory Day will be celebrated on 2 days, as mentioned, 11th May and 12th October, aligning with the cyclic nature of bird migration in different hemispheres, that is, northern hemisphere and southern hemispheres. So this campaign, especially, is a joint effort of the Convention of the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, in short known as CMS, the African Eurasian Migratory Waterboard Agreement, AEWA, and Environment for the America, and the EAAFP. The addition of EAAFP to this partnership strengthens engagement and awareness for the migratory birds in the East Asian Australian flywing. So this year, As the campaign focuses on insects, each year the campaign features a central theme, prompts action, coordinates global efforts to safeguard migratory birds and their habitats. This day raises awareness about the challenges birds face and encourage conservation actions worldwide, and it also triggers hundreds of educational events around the world that are united by their common goal of raising awareness and advocating for the international bird protection. Like this, as we commemorate every day, we are advocating for various causes and we are supporting and extending our cause without any expectation. See, we don't take anything, even we are not seeking a sponsorship or funding from any of the organization, including United Nations, or they are spending billions and millions of rupees on awareness and campaigns to various organizations, to governments, NGOs, but we are not seeking. Of course, they are also not doing daily programs, but it is our responsibility. We feel that it's our duty towards our nature, environment, and towards the cause to contribute. That's why we voluntarily came up and taken up initiative with the all kind-hearted, like-minded people joining us in this journey without any expectation. Of course, people come and join for their own expectations and keep living. But those who are there since the inception and those who have been there with us in the long journey are those who are really by heart and by soul, they are part of this journey without any expectation on this platform, because we all feel that it's our responsibility to contribute back to the society, at least in the possible way we can. It may not be possible, to go out and do in various ways physically, and it may not be always possible to do it virtually. So a blend of both physically and virtually has to be leveraged so that the benefits can be taken to reach more people. We have these offline events also organized, but it involves a lot of people, lot of funds, lot of infrastructure, and not only for us, but also for the people who are attending physically. See, for us, it's okay. We have our own auditoriums, in our affiliated organizations, universities, colleges, and, we can give opportunity for them because they also, as part of various initiatives, NAC and various other things, they also need to conduct programs. Every college has to conduct programs and they also need funds for it. So as we are doing it for free, many are willing to come forward and utilize our services, because as we are conducting online and offline, they are also willing, because without any funds, without any financial burden, they will get an event. And not only that, they will have a productive, engagement of faculty, students, scholars, part of it. So even people are inviting us wholeheartedly to organize events. So for us, it's okay, to organize offline or online. It doesn't make much difference. But the difference is to the participants, they need to reach out to venue. Again, there is a lot of logistics involved. So for locally, that is why most of the offline events are organized in the local communities. So generally, we do not invite others outside of that community to the events. That's why you don't find any offline events details on the website. There is no point. See, whatever we truly believe in, whatever it is not for publicity sake. You put many people keep asking earlier, even why you are not putting offline events on the site because it is not required. See, the purpose of the site is, especially this site is dedicated to enable people to join events and putting an event where people cannot join, it doesn't make any sense. No, even if you put an offline event somewhere, say in some place, so not this is a platform where people join from international locations. So it is not possible for everyone to join physically from international locations. So that will have implication of resources traveling and all. So that's why we are not sharing offline or we are putting offline events on that. And the same event which are happening online also happen offline because the place from where we are operating or where we are conducting itself is an offline celebration venue where we are celebrating here and at the same time we are celebrating online also virtually and you all get a participation. But timings differs, sometimes we celebrate in working hours within the college, within the office or within the community. So that's it, where people gather. Generally, we are there for different purposes and we commemorate events in the classrooms, in the lecture halls, in the auditoriums, or in the community or in the offices. And where, because that is the working hours, we take out some time and celebrate offline. And we organize events also offline where that is more convenient for that. And online because we all are working and to avoid clash of working hours, these timings was decided in such a way not to clash with the working hours so that our working hours don't get disturbed. So that's how initially we were having full day, full time also conferences happening from morning 9 to evening. That was in the COVID time or just after COVID time, post COVID time, where we were working online and where, there was feasibility, an option for both blended mode, that is few days offline, few days online. And as per the convenience, it was like online or offline. There was flexibility. So in that way, but as and when the UGC have gave guidelines to go for offline and slowly online activities have come down and all the institutions, research institutions, academic institutions, and they have started offline activity. And thus the time which was available for the online activities gradually started reducing. And slowly we have moved ourselves to the non-working hours. And especially on the weekends, where we are spending our weekends, like Saturdays or Sundays, full days. So earlier it was like we were having full day sessions on Saturdays and Sundays, but even that also had little bit concerns because we only hardly get for the entire week, we only get one day, and that one day also, for people who just come and attend, for them, it's not a big thing. But for the organizers, just imagine you are in a family and you don't give that one day or half day also to your family. Especially at home, it's okay. We are spending some time. They also want to go for outing and other, or attend some functions or so. it will be very difficult, to manage things. So because they're managing both work life and personal life is also important. So because of various such factors, the timings also adjusted, and even gradually we have moved even on Sundays also to the evening sessions, so that we continue. See, every day it should be like every day we need to have some dose of motivation, some dose of encouragement, some dose of information which helps us to keep moving ahead. So that's the reason. And the concerns also are increasing day by day because of the climate change, and various issues are also increasing day by day. Even if we take up so many topics, every day we feel at the end of the day, we missed this topic, or we could have included this topic, or still these topics have to be covered. There, I have more than 5,000 plus topics to be covered. I thought whenever I'm listening to presenters or whenever I am presenting, I get ideas and I keep noting. I have a book here, especially where that is dedicated only for the topics. I write keywords and topics, whichever I remember or whichever participants also ask. So that list have crossed even 5,000. Some we could cover, and some we could manage, but still there are many other topics. Some we have covered in a brief, but there are many topics which need to be covered. So what I'm telling is, there are so much to be discussed, so much to be disseminated. And this is a very good opportunity. We can cover all the topics on the globe. Thanks to the Almighty, He blessed us and He has provided us His grace that we can deal with the topics. But that is not the sole purpose. We also want people to come up, share their perspective on different aspects. So this, especially why we are talking about all this advocacy, it's not just one person talking or one organization talking, or like these 3-4 organizations talking. Across the world, it is important because birds are everywhere. So not just one organization doing something will not give that much impact. It has to become a practice from across the world. We have also collaborations, official collaborations with various organizations, even with World Migratory Bird Day. And many organizations, we are co-partners with them. And we have official, even all our events are also listed on their official websites. We can see many events we have organized with many international and national, agencies, and we are continuing to do so. But whether we have official collaboration or not, they also know, whether we have a specific brochure or flyer or not. They know, they also keep watching us about what is the present this year, what they are doing. And because our platform, they know very well. So they keep attending, joining, they keep observing. And they also support us, and we are also extending our support. It's not like always we are expecting something, at least the name and other things is not required official. So whoever comes, we are taking them and we have to move forward. That is the objective of even today, World Migratory Day, which is, the focus is on the importance of insects, for migratory birds, and the roots especially, because why birds are disappearing. It is everyone. It's everyone's responsibility. Even we see there are some insects in our garden. We try to put all the pesticides. That is not the natural way of containing the insects. We need to have more birds around our homes, our communities, so that birds come and eat them, so that they also fed and they also flourish. But unfortunately, what is happening? We are using more pesticides, fertilizers to kill the birds, and also to kill the insects, and also to kill the humans indirectly. How? Because that pesticide, residues of pesticides, fertilizers flow into the water sources which are consumed by all species, and at the same time the residues which are left in the plants, like the produce of fruits like leaves or fruits or stems or branches which are consumed as part of vegetables or as part of fruits, as part of roots, are consumed by us, or as part of flowers. They are consumed by us, and again they are entering our body, and it is creating health issues. So instead of that, we have an organic way, a natural way of controlling these pests through birds. Especially, nowadays sparrows have become very rare. Otherwise, we see, I have seen most of my life, half of my life, with sparrows I have spent in and around my house. But the present generations have lost that experience. So hardly we can find sparrows. They were a very good pest control, and they were making all around some buzz, and it was very lively, to see those sparrows and nest, and they keep coming, going. It's a kind of some activity, some a kind of joy, a happiness that we see that we are close to nature. That is also one of the reasons where they are not able to survive, because the first thing is climate, the heat, extreme heat they are not able to tolerate, because these are beyond their tolerance levels. That's why many birds are being killed. And the next is lack of food, food and water, because many species are not able to tolerate and survive. They are getting endangered, they are getting extinct from the planet because of not able to survive. And because of a lot of fertilizers, pesticides, and so on, they are being killed, and the population is also declining. So the ecosystem is getting disturbed with all these things. So not only that, the stark reality uncovered over recent years is that insect population are declining, correlating with the decline in bird species, which are reliant on insects for their survival. So not only insects are declining, but also birds are declining, and also other species which are dependent on birds are also declining. So just by loss of one species, entire ecosystem gets disturbed. Just imagine for a moment, if one member in your family who is productive member, active member, has been removed from the family, what would happen to your family? This is not the correct example, but I am giving you. Just imagine for some time. Of course, someday we have to leave. That is a different thing. But for some time, this is a temporary situation, I'm telling. You imagine. But what we are doing is permanently removing a species from the planet that would create a lot of disturbance in the ecosystem. That huge gap, that population, if there is no natural predator, there is a beautiful cycle in the nature. Every species has a natural predator to keep that population in control. So why no population outgrows? Only the human beings do not have natural predators. That's why we are outgrowing. We started eating everything, every species on the planet. We have become the natural predators of entire planet, including flora, fauna, that is plants and animals, and also human beings. Because there is cannibalism in some places where people are also eating people. So we haven't left anything on this planet. Now there are no natural predators that are eating humans to that scale. That's why human beings are increasing it, exploding. In fact, that is the right word. Human explosion, population explosion is happening. That is taxing on other species, and they are lacking the resources. So now, and that is why the other species are becoming endangered, extinct. And that creates a huge gap in the ecosystem. And thus, we are also seeing various impacts of that gap, which has adverse effects on not only the planet, but also on human beings. An analysis in the journal Science revealed that we are losing roughly 9% of the world's insect population each year. And each decade, deforestation, industrial agriculture, and the overuse of pesticides, light pollution, and climate change are major factors driving this trend, as per Reuters. Additionally, the United States and Canada have observed avian population declines with a significant 29% drop in the bird population since 1970. Imagine 30% already declined since 1970 and equating to around 2.9 billion fewer birds. And that is statistics, and the present statistics are even alarming. So that's why many species which are known to us, there are many species which are unknown to us. And they are also, they might also, not might, they are also becoming extinct. And that huge gap is increasing. And at the same time, the species which we know are also are becoming endangered and becoming extinct. So because of our activity, human activities, we are creating an enormous disaster in the entire ecosystem of the planet. And because of that, many species are becoming endangered and extinct. So the stark reality uncovered over recent years has been showing that many species are becoming endangered and extinct. So this year's World Migratory Bird Day theme, Protect Insects, Protect Birds, is an opportunity to raise awareness of the importance of insects, to educate and to learn. It coincides with rare and fascinating insect events, such as the double brood cicada emergence in North America and the synchronous fireflies event in the Smoky Mountains National Park likely to be occurring in late May or early June. In other parts of the world, the migration of the wandering glider, dragonfly, which is also known as Pantera flavescens, which is a scientific name, stand out for its remarkable impact on the Amur falcons, which is scientifically known as Falco amurensis. So journey across Asia and Africa. So while in Europe, the decline of the pied flycatcher, which is scientifically known as Physidula hypoloca, has been linked to the climate-related food shortages, whereby the birds now frequently arrive in European forest after the caterpillars have matured into insects, with their chicks cannot eat. So the consequences of mistiming was already published in Nature in 2006. Because, see, one thing is arriving in time is also important. The time factor is also important. Doing in right time, the time discipline, time management is also important. Otherwise, what will happen? Things will change. If time changes, things will also change. Situations will also change. So similarly, the young birds or chicks cannot consume bigger prey. So when they are still in the form of, caterpillars, it is easy for them to eat. Birds can eat insects, but those small chicks cannot eat insects. So they will prey on caterpillars. But the delay of these migrations due to various aspects also makes the non-availability of food for these chicks, small birds. So the consequence of this mistiming has been widely researched and recorded, and the impacts have also been noted. So, to mark this day, we all, people around the world, join together in this celebration and discuss about simple but yet effective strategies to protect insects and birds. Some examples. Now, what you can also share some examples how we could save birds and also protect insects so that the food sources of birds remain intact. Some examples of actions being encouraged through this campaign are planting native gardens to create suitable habitats for wildlife, selecting organic products, thereby avoiding harmful pesticides, reducing habitat destruction linked to property development or landscaping practice, educating friends and family about the role insects play in our ecosystem, supporting education efforts aimed at insect conservation, including promoting their conservation at the community level, creating laws and regulations to protect insects and migratory birds, encouraging local conservation activities to maintain natural habitats for insects, birds, and other wildlife. So events to celebrate World Migratory Bird Day, the phenomenon of bird migration and the connections between birds and insects will take place across the world's flyways on 11th May 2020. So this is a wonderful opportunity for everyone to rethink about this day. As insect populations are declining globally, and this is affecting many insect-eating migratory birds, while further research is needed to understand the extent of the problem, The decline of insects in many parts of the world is already having significant impacts on a range of migratory birds, migratory insectivorous species, especially bird and bat species. This has also recently been underlined by a CMS reporter on insects presented at CMS COP40 in February 2024. Insects are key to survival and breeding success of many migratory birds. These include some migratory water birds such as northern bald ibis and the sociable lapwing, both AEWA endangered species that are also featured on the Global Migratory World Migratory Bird Day, which you can see also on the poster. You will find that on the certificate as well. So intensive use of pesticides is one of the main reasons for the decline of insect populations. By protecting insects, we protect our migratory birds. As quoted by African Eurasian Waterbird Agreement. And we cannot live without our six-legged friends, the insects, outnumbering us humans. They may be small, scary, and often irritating, stinging and biting. But as a crucial part of the food chain, they are what our world relies on. They are especially important to birds as they are nutritious, full of protein, and may solely rely on them for food. So keep our bird species alive, avoid pesticides, value mosquitoes, grow plants that flower and spread the message, insects for life, as quoted by Eastern Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. So the World Migratory Bird Day, we highlight the relationship between the migratory birds and insects, emphasizing the urgent need to protect them from the aerobatics of cliff swallows that capture insects in flight, to hummingbirds that feed them to their young, and the foraging of shorebirds that probe for insects in the sand and other habitats. It is evident that many birds rely on insects at various stages of their life cycles. Insects provide an essential source of energy for migratory birds, and steep declines in grasshoppers, bees, butterflies, and other insects are a stark reminder that the conservation of birds depend on the successful protection of their insect prey. So we all invite you to join us taking action to protect insects, to protect birds, as quoted by Environment for the Americas, EFT. So with this, we shall end this commemoration. Of course, there is a lot to talk about this very important day, but due to time constraints, we are not taking up in detail. But definitely, in coming days, we will have much more events coming up. Today is also one more important day that is commemorated as World Fair Trade Day. That is also very important. And its purpose is to celebrate the contributions to the fight against poverty, exploitation, and climate change. The fair trade movement is all about ensuring kindly bear us for few more minutes so that we can conclude. So this day or the fair trade movement is all about ensuring that workers around the globe are treated fairly with decent wages and working conditions. There are thousands of people currently working in unfavorable conditions and being paid poorly. So it shouldn't matter where someone lives. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect. Formerly, the International Federation of Alternative Traders, the World Fair Trade Organization, which was created in 1989, hold yearly conferences for groups working in fair trade to decide on the best practices pertaining to working conditions. And in 2004, they created World Fair Trade. So the continuing goal is to fight against poverty and exploitation, climate change, and the economic crisis to ensure that those who are most vulnerable in the society are protected. Today is also one more important day. We are taking just in brief, that is World Ego Awareness Day. This is very important. You know, everyone has a lot of ego. Now, that's why this day is also serves as an important day for all of us to reflect ourselves upon our condition. And it is a day to set aside to remind everyone of the dangers of having inflated ego. We all know someone who we claim has a big ego. So World Ego Awareness Day is an important day as it helps people self-respect on how big their ego truly is, and at the same time evaluate their experiences with people around them to determine just how much of their perceived ego becomes and comes in conflict with another person's ego. So this day is important not just for individuals, but also for the society, as well as because of the society free of toxic egos would thrive better than one that is filled with toxic egos. That's why this day is very important. So World Ego Awareness Day was created in 2018. In the meanwhile, we will share the feedback form so that we can save some time. So you can continue to fill the feedback form while listening, or you can do after that also, no problem. Yeah, so this day helps us to help people that suffer from an advanced case of egoism learn to deal with people around them and better humility. Egoism comes with a lot of negative effects, which not just affect the individual, but also affects others around them as well. It leads to abusive behavior, a skewed experience with interactions with other people, and blindness to the reality of situations, among other negative effects. It is important to help people around you be more mindful of their behavior while also being mindful of your own, or not just World Ego Awareness Day, but every day of our lives. Egoism is a mental condition, and that should be stomped out by everyone. We all should come together to prevent others from experiencing the effects of this invisible form of abuse. Education and advocacy can be used to help reduce the number of people in the world that fall victim to egoism. World Ego Awareness Day seeks to highlight the issues surrounding egoism and encourage everyone to be mindful, raise people's consciousness, and speak out against egoistic or narcissistic learned behavior. By observing the day, learning from it, and applying it to our daily, everyday lives, we can work to inform, educate, and prevent one of the major causes of humans suffering on earth. Many people who suffer from egotism are not aware that they are suffering from a mental condition. When they become aware, they find out that they are either a perpetrator or the one being abused. So this having ego, ego to certain extent is good. But when you cross that extent or limitation, it is a mental disorder. Mental conditions that need to be addressed. Too much ego is also not good because it creates a lot of conflicts within yourself and among others around you. So it's always important to understand your ego and how it functions. Many people who suffer, they don't actively understand. They say, and many people misunderstand the ego as self-respect. Self-respect is something else. Self-respect means respecting yourself, but it doesn't mean disrespecting others. So, in the name of self-respect, you cannot go to the extent of disrespecting others. So, that is not acceptable because you have no right to disrespect anyone. For that matter, you should not also disrespect you. That is where, this self-respect comes into play. You have to respect yourself, your time, your resources, your efforts, your contribution. That's the point where self-respect comes into play. Sometimes, we don't respect ourselves. Ourselves in the sense, we don't value ourselves. We get lost. Sometimes those who are in social service, those who are in philanthropic service, those is in religious service, they forget themselves. They don't take care of themselves because they are lost in the service of others. So that's why it is important. They neglect their health, they neglect their well-being, they neglect their own this thing, and they become vulnerable. Because for them only, they get too much involved, get overwhelmed in this service they do, and they neglect themselves. So in that case, self-respect, is important to protect themselves, because unless and until you are there, your health and well-being is important so that you can keep serving. If you are not able to serve, then the purpose or the initiative which you have taken will not continue further. So it is also equally important that you take care of yourself. In that aspect, self-respect is important and a very good contributor. But at the same time, if you are crossing that limit and you think that, you need to be respected, you need to be, always honored, you need to be without considering others, then that is somewhere that ego comes into place, which is not at all acceptable, as it is beyond the reality. So you will not able to see the realistic situation there. And you will be in your own fantastic world, your own imagination. You will not be able to see reality, where you create more conflicts, not only within yourself, but also with others. And they are suffering without knowing that they are suffering. And that is a state where you wouldn't consciously know that you are suffering and you are making others suffer. And that lack of awareness also makes you, get into more conflicts and create more damage to yourself and your relationships within and around you. So the field of psychology, the study of human mind, Policies in Leipzig, Germany, which became a study in 1854. The world's first psychological laboratory was founded, established by Wilhelm Wundt, the first psychology laboratory in Leipzig, Germany in 1879. Hugo Münsterberg begins writing about the application of psychology to industry, law, and other fields in 1890s, and the birth of World Ego Awareness Day by the Ego Awareness Movement in 2018 was established. We all are born with ego. So that comes with us, dies with us. So we need to maintain it. We need to manage it, that it doesn't cross its boundaries and limitations. Ego can produce negative effects. Anger, fear, resentment, jealousy are all the products of ego. Because of ego only, you get anger, you get fear. Anger because you are perceiving yourself as helpless and you are not able to change the situation or adapt to the situation. There is also fear that you are going to face the failure, you are going to face the failure and also the kind of disappointment, embracing situation, or which also hurts your ego. And there is a lot of resentment because of that. And you also feel jealous about people, about places, about situations, and many more. Because you are not at that mark. And that increases the stress, that hurts your ego, that triggers your ego. That's why ego is equally important, and management of that ego is more important. Comparatively, various studies show that male has more displays of ego than women, because women has more ways to express their egos and manage them. But men get less opportunity to express their ego and manage them in appropriate way. Women, because of being part of family, dealing with various situations, with family members and relatives and so on, women get a lot of opportunity to reflect, manage, and also alter, change, adapt to the situations because of their wide exposure, wide various situations they get exposed to. So they are better in managing. But males, due to very restricted exposure, they get limited opportunities. That's why they are more egoistic than women, because they don't get as many opportunities or as much as opportunity as women. So that is greater advantages in this aspect, especially women are very fortunate. that they have different ways. That's why we see, women are very calm and very understanding because they see, in and out. They see, they manage children, they manage spouse, they manage parents, they manage in-laws, and so many people, they know how to behave, how to adapt, how to adjust, how to change, how to compromise, and when to take hold, when to leave, and all these they are very over period of time they learn, so they become experts, or at least they are able to manage things. But men are not exposed to that extent, so that's why men become more vulnerable. So celebrate this day, reading more about ego and also psychology. Learn about as it could help you with your mental health and behavior. Evaluate yourself on World Ego Awareness Day. It could just by reflecting on different situations that have caused a conflict between you and someone else to see if egoism comes into play. See, most of the time we get into conflicts because we don't understand, we don't think, we don't take the perspective of others. We are always in our shoes. Once, if you get into the other person's shoes, then you will understand, that things are different. Not everyone has the same kind of environment, time, resources. Everyone is struggling for their own survival, livelihood, and various other requirements, needs, desires, wants, which are subjective to them. So we don't know, we should not judge them. We need to understand if something is not happening, then why it is not happening. We should not get into the blame mode or criticism mode or anger mode, hatred mode. In fact, the best way to solve is offer yourself, offer your services voluntarily so that it can be resolved. Most of the time we don't do, we get into conflict. We just outburst on them, saying, you have failed, you are inefficient, you are incompetent, and also on all things will come because of this all mixed emotions of anger, jealousy, hatred, resentment, and all. Instead of that, you take over the situation, handle the situation and see, be in their shoes and see what could I have done if I have been in that place. And if you could do anything that could change the present situation, come forward voluntarily and offer your services. That will automatically solve the problem. I will give you one relevant example here on the platform. See, many times it happens, you don't complete the formalities and suddenly, you blame organizers or you blame. That will not solve the problem. You need to understand, look into, keep your ego aside and see where the things have gone wrong. You need to go check one by one, whether you need to check whether the registration form you have filled have given proper details, or like I was mentioning. This is common mistake people do. Student India, student Punjab, student Maharashtra, student Tamil Nadu. So these kind of mistakes which commonly do, or sometimes, we see people, they enter the details, they just enter their name, and rest of all not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. Even address also not applicable. So where they are staying, not on the earth. They are not staying in any city. They are not staying in any states. They are not staying in any country. So where they are staying on the planet, or they are not itself in the planet. So these things, there are some mistakes that are happening. Either it may be deliberate because your ego doesn't allow you. You feel your ego says it is not required or it is not mandatory to fill all these details. Why to give details? Or you feel, you think yourself, your ego says, I need not follow these instructions. These are not for me. Otherwise, what you will do? You'll think, yes, this is my responsibility to complete everything in detail. Then you will complete all the details properly. Then you would proceed. Otherwise, if you think you are superior or it is not for you, I need not fill, I am exempted, or it's okay even if I don't fill also doesn't matter. All these things and many more things, you will not complete them and you will just ignore them. And when but you came here for a purpose. I came here for a purpose. I came here so that I can contribute. You also came here so that you have a purpose, either to learn or because of your academic requirement. You have to present something in somewhere, someplace. So you have come here. Now your priority is not only for learning, but also to get a certificate. Then it is also your responsibility to keep your ego aside. Because with that ego, you are only creating conflicts within yourself and with others. And you are not able to achieve what you have to achieve here. And also at your place. So if you don't get that acknowledgement, if you don't get that document, then the purpose will also get not solved. Now, if you don't keep your ego aside and work on what has actually happened, and if you don't get out of your assumptions that I am always right, others are always wrong, this kind of attitude or this kind of egoistic behavior will not solve the problem. You need to go back, check. You need to check whether the formalities have been completed. You prepare checklist. What is the total formalities? What are the steps? It will not take much time. You take a paper, write all the steps in detail and see, check one step, whether you have completed or not. In that step, whether you have completed everything or not, whether you have completed, whether you have provided invalid data or incomplete data or partial data, which may have created some issue or concern. At each step, if you verify, you yourself will know and you yourself will correct it, keeping ego aside. Otherwise, what you will do? You doesn't mean only you, everyone, all of us. So what we'll do, we'll just think that we have completed everything. Certificate. We'll do japa, that's all. Not put any efforts to solve that. And that will never get solved. Why you are not putting any efforts to solve that? Only when you put some efforts, try to keeping your ego aside. When you see what is the problem, is there anything that I can help you to solve this? When you don't offer yourself, when you don't offer your services, see that itself is helping yourself. If there is some issues because we have very huge, tight time issues. So that's why we cannot go back and do. So you need to offer. How you need to offer? How you can offer is go check, have the certificate request form, fill all the details. By yourself, you will know how much effort it is required, how much time. And again, you need to go back. And I'm sure many people don't use that format because we also get feedback. They also don't remember. They personally call and say, "Sir, I don't remember all these details. Kindly help me out." This is the problem. If you yourself don't remember, you are the one who have presented, and you forget everything yourself, and you ask us to remember, you expect us to remember everything. How is that possible? When you yourself are not remembering that. So these are the practical situations. We take things for granted. And don't delay. The more you delay, the more we will forget, you will forget. That's why I keep telling you, complete in time. Don't delay. Keep your ego aside. The more you carry your ego everywhere you are going to create conflicts on. You have to keep your ego aside and then move ahead. I'm sure everywhere you are going to have success. Everywhere you are going to win. But if you are placing ego before you everywhere, I'm sure everywhere you will end up with conflicts. You will end up with straining your relationships. So because of that only, most of the time we suffer. So that's why evaluating ourselves is very important. Keep ego aside. Think in other person's perspective. See what you can do now. Okay, whatever is happened is happened. Now, what is that we can do so that we can address that concern or issue? So, is there anything from my side I can do? If you think that, what you will do, you will again register again, you will again provide feedback, and before that, you will try to just fill out that request form and ensure collect all the details as much as possible. Be as genuine as possible. And also mention, if you don't remember anything, write a brief note on that saying, "This is my situation. Kindly help me out in whatever way we can." At least, providing that feedback also is very important. To make someone invest their time and resources also is an art. Not everyone, why someone will invest time, additional time, only when they feel concerned. Because here opportunities are there. You need to, really, there are plenty of opportunities to correct the mistake, to change it. But in spite of that, if you are not changing, that is completely your mistake. At many times we don't get an opportunity to correct. Once filled is filled. Once applied is applied. You cannot make any changes. That's all done. Gone case. But here you are getting an opportunity to correct yourself multiple times. But still, if you are not able to correct yourselves, who is going to help you? Because of our ego, we don't think in that way. Our ego always tells, no, I am always right. And the other person is always wrong. The fault is on others. I have done everything correctly. Because of that attitude, because of that egoistic attitude or because of that ego, we create a lot of conflict within ourselves and others. We are against the reality. We are not able to look at the reality situation. We don't go back to check even application. We are overconfident that we have done everything correct. We have followed everything. There is no need to check. So that's why that remains unresolved. And ultimately you lose out. You get only partial benefits. You are getting, already you got benefits. Only one benefit which you might think that is only important benefit or that is a 5 benefit. You are losing on that. Instead of that, being patient, being compassionate, being kind, if you put your ego aside and see what has happened, what could have happened, if you are willing to help yourself to sort it out, then most of the problems in your life you will be handling. It is this, because of this ego, many people are suffering today. Not only in academics, not only at workplace, not only at home. Everywhere people suffer because of this egoistic attitude. So it's very important for everyone, including me, you, everyone, to keep this ego in control, to manage this ego properly, and ensure that ego is always positive. Ego is required, ego is good, like self-respect. But if it crosses its limits, that's all gone case. It's going to create a lot of havoc in your life. Not only with you, with the people. So that is why it is very important that this commemoration today because of this ego, that gives rise to a lot of mental disorders like depression, which is one of the main causes of disability worldwide, and an estimated of 264 million people are affected by depression, of which a larger part of the percentage belongs to women. Because of the cyclic thoughts, they are not able to get over it. Because this ego doesn't allow you, because you are fixated. You think you are only right, other person is wrong, and you just delve into it because of that helplessness. And you feel that you cannot do anything to him or that place or that person or to that object, and that perceived helplessness and that cyclic thoughts, you get entangled in the cyclic thoughts and you cannot get out of it. And over a period of time, you start neglecting everything, including your own personal hygiene, health, diet, and ultimately neglecting yourself. You will die, you will kill yourself, or you will kill others, you will harm others, or you will harm yourself. And you will become totally unproductive. And bipolar disorder. This disorder affects about 45 million people worldwide and typically consists of manic and depressive episodes separated by periods of normal mood, especially mood disorders. Ego also contributes to a lot of mood disorders. Maniac, suddenly you become lunatic, like a mad person. And you have mood swings. Suddenly you are good, suddenly you are bad. You are nice to nice people who perceive as nice, and suddenly if that person is not in your favor or not accepting your suggestion or argument or statement, you suddenly overreact and say, suddenly we see people, if they are, as long as they are with them, they keep praising. And once they say something, even a single thing against them, that's all gone case. I think every one of us have experienced. We lost many friends, many people in our life. Definitely, I'm sure, I'm very confident that at least we lost one person in our life because of that. Because of one small mistake, a person did, we completely ignore them. Like all the 100 or 1,000 benefits they have done, good things they have done, will all get vanished. Will all get undervalued because of that one mistake or one wrong they have done. It can be a simple lie, or it can be some simple statement, which is counter statement. Why this happens? Because of our ego. We are not able to realize we are not in reality. See how many times that person was with you, supporting you, and so many benefits he has given to you. And just one benefit, what happens? 1,000 times he helped you, 100 times he helped you, 10 times he helped you. One time, if he could not help or if she could not help you, what's the big deal? But because of that one thing you keep in mind and you spoil the entire relationship, you get into conflict with that person and you lose that person. And you also create hatred, jealousy towards that person. And lifelong that burden keeps. Whenever you see that person, whenever you think of that person, whenever you happen to hear about that person, those negative emotions keep bothering you. That is why this vengeance, this especially we see this vengeance and they trouble people, harm people, kill people, because they are not able to tolerate. That is not other person problem, it is your problem, because you are not able to handle it, because you are not able to manage your ego, your emotions, your negative emotions, negative feelings. You are creating problem, but you think that other person is creating problem. And schizophrenia, it's a severe mental disorder that affects about 20 million people. And most of these severe cases are hospitalized or institutionalized because they need 24/7 observation. And dementia, it is a chronic condition that causes a deterioration in cognitive function, that is to ability to process thoughts. One thing is you'll forget and you'll also have this disability to process the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and the reality. And not only that, that normal developmental activities also get affected, like developmental disorders, which is an umbrella term for intellectual disability, which is severe and pervasive developmental disorders, including autism, ADHD, which starts affecting an individual from childhood, causing a delay in functions related to central nervous system. Even these symptoms can be aggravated with ego in childhood as well as in adulthood. So egoism is a disease that is hard to detect, much like any other mental health issue. So this day, helps shine a light on the disease and help those that suffer from it realize what they are dealing. So this day, World Ego Awareness Day, helps people to evaluate if they are egoistic or victims of egoism. The first part of resolving is to identify it. The very simple solution is identify whether you are carried away by your ego. Once you identify that, then automatically the solution is with you. You need to control your ego, keep aside your ego, and work on the solution. Automatically, you resolve. A society where everyone is aware of how their ego can affect others and themselves would thrive. It builds better communication between people in the society, and it also aids in intrapersonal communication and interpersonal communication. Additionally, there are some other important days also, but already we have exceeded time. So lastly, we have Data Innovation Day, which is part of Data Innovation Summit, US, which is an event that looks at the latest innovations and analyzes the hurdles in the path of government data. So in this day and age, data innovation reigns supreme because of the advancement in technology and the globalization. Hence, the government is always searching for individuals who are interested in researching the industry. So if you hold an interest in data innovation, data insights, and cutting-edge technology, this event for you. So make some time in attending this summit. So it will benefit you. Your interest. So thank you once again, everyone, for your patience listening. We appreciate all the speakers, presenters for the day, and also the participants, especially for your valuable time and resources for joining us and making this day successful. We express our heartfelt gratitude to each and everyone. So any presentations left out, we'll take it. We'll give you opportunity. Don't worry. Based on the priority, we have to see, and we also have to give opportunity to new people, and priority based on most relevant topics in the conference. So don't worry, if possible, we will try to extend 1 or 2 days also. That we'll decide it tomorrow, whether there is a need to extend, or as always, this is an ongoing series. So you can present on any day. You can participate on any day. There is no one stopping you. There is nothing that is preventing you. So you can attend every day, and you will get certificate every day based on your completion of formalities. It is only now or some other day, but definitely you will get as long as you complete the form. So if you have a time-bound limitations, so complete everything in time and follow up us through proper channel, not on calls, not on SMS, not on social media. There is a proper channel through email, or even if you are contacting in WhatsApp, ensure that you are contacting with proper details. If you don't don't do chatting like you are chatting like on fast friends, or like, you are chatting with an organization, you are chatting with an official, you are chatting with a professor. Keep that in mind. And you are requesting something. You should not irritate person, you should not disturb person. Because whatever you do, it should make other person feel that we should help this person. Then only the other person also will put sacrifice his time and resources to help you. Otherwise, no, sometimes if you create a situation where in spite of investing time and resources, it doesn't resolve, there is no point in it. So let's, on this occasion of World Ego Awareness, let's keep our egos aside and keep work towards peace and harmony in this world. Thank you, everyone. See you all tomorrow. Before leaving, quickly fill up the feedback form, which has been raised in the form of polls. So see you all tomorrow with the same joining link, with a wonderful topics coming up tomorrow. Take care. Good night.